same thing, the DCs and the reserves are there. I'll talk about a few of them along the way here. So again, to 2020, the reality, we've got a Golden Hagen Street water main loop. That'll tie those dead ends together. Glen Elk Street water main servicing. We carried this because this will be part of the final Glen Elk project. But they'll have to get into tie into our water main, but we know that water main needs some upgrading, and we don't know exactly how far we'll have to chase that, whether it's to Dundalk Street or if we're going to have to chase it to the railway tracks. So we carried some budget in there just in case a part of that may be part of our fee to pay for getting their servicing. So at this point, it's on them, but we're carrying something in case we have to go way further beyond. And again, keeping some engineering in for the water tower engineering and design. So in 2021, the visualization, the cap goal is that the township will erect a new water tower in Dundalk. And currently that is in the 21 budget at a cost of $3,225,000 with a DC's eligibility of 2.7. This will be part of reducing energy use when we get a tower. We won't be pumping all day long like we do currently out of the wells. The wells will pump to the tower kind of thing, and then the tower with its head pressure will feed the distribution system. So there'll be some energy efficiencies there.
Just for clarification, because we'll have questions.
When we're reading this, 3.2 million minus DC equals 2.7, or can we use 2.7? We can use 2.7 of DC, so it's really a $500,000 cost.
It's not a minus. That's not a minus.
Okay.
It's just a hyphen. Sorry.
Okay, so the cost after DCs would be about $525,000. Thanks.
And then 2022, we're carrying a bulk water fill station that right now I would think that it probably would go out in the Eco Park. This is to fill up tankers or other machines that come along, and we currently fill them with a hydrant or another process. But this system here, you go in, you use a credit card or whatever you pay, the water dispenses into your tank, and it's all backflow prevented, So again, it's something that communities are using more and more. If you want somebody to fill up your swimming pool or whatever, they go and buy it from the station there, and away you go. So, moving on to the ideas for 23-29. This is based on present assessment. We have Owen Sound Street water main loop. That again is tied to a project there that was supposed to be for that seniors development. We stubbed out a Main Street with the project so we could connect without getting into the new pavement there. So again, that project may get deferred if it doesn't come down the pipe.
Play on words.
And then in 2026 we have Main Street, and it's bolded or highlighted there red, west, water main oversizing. That project was slated in that time frame with the Grey County's alignment of budget, but doing the shave and pave on the west side, that may extend it out another 3 or 5 years or something. So again, that'll be county dependent when that project probably moves forward. So. And then 23-29 for development growth. The concept is right now that we'll need to do another well EA in 23, construct a well in 24, the way the development's coming, and in 29 do another EA. We may be able to, because we're not even pumping probably 35–40% of our current well availability. We may be able to do something with our permit to take water to rejig it, that it'll have sufficient capacity to carry on a bit more growth, but we'll have to cross that bridge a bit closer to the time we get it, but that's kind of how that's playing out for water supply. And then 23 to 29, the foresight for the climate change and legislation. Again, source water protection, if anything changes there, being compliant with environmental protection and water conservation practices. We currently follow them now, but more and more I think it'll becoming more prevalent in the future for the MECP want to see more water conservation initiatives. So there we go.
Any questions on the water portion of this? Barb, you have a question?
Just a little one.
Okay.
When you do an EA for the well, it has to be constructed within 3 years?
No, it's 10 years.
10 years? So and there's no benefit, there would be no cost benefit of doing the EA for both D6 and D7 at the same time?
I guess we'd have to ask that question with the engineers and the MECP if they would consider that. I guess we'd have to keep forecasting that the growth would promote it and carry it, that we would go down that road. But yeah, it's a good point. So
Thank you.
It would be risky because we have numbers that show we only need a well every 10 years, but we're showing a bit more aggressive in the next one. The next one will likely be needed sooner than the D7 that we're using, because like Jim says, we should be able to get more efficient.
Any other questions or comments on the water? Okay. Oh, Brian?
Just one quick one, Jim. Sorry I'm talking a mouthful, but do we have any issues with lead pipes in the village?
no,
That would-
no.
None?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
We've done all that testing.
We're currently in a 3-year reduced sampling period, which you have to go back in for a cycle again, and the testing will prove that you're okay, and then you'll get relief again for 3 years of reduced sampling. So I would anticipate that's how we'll be operating.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, Jim, with the bulk water, what kind of rate would be charged? I
We
know
could maybe,
I know Nestle's gets it out of the ground for like 0.05 cents per liter or something. How much do you think we charge?
well, it'd be based on our current rates as of now, but
Oh, okay.
we may ask, we're doing a water rate study, recommendation in that water rate study for the bulk. If it's a different fee than what the normal consumer of water is paying, so.
Okay.
But I think it's around $1 something a cubic meter right now, so it's really cheap right now. If you sold a tanker of water, we might get $40 or something, so.
Barb?
And it shouldn't be less than what our residents are paying to take water in their daily usage. Would that be something that we would use to replenish, like the fire department requiring a water source on the industrial shops, let's say, and they use that water for another one, it would be a way of charging back? Or would that be where they get the water from to
No,
replenish those?
this would be for fire
This
services.
is just more for in-town.
Again, it would take a card transaction. They have their fill stations, they've got hydrants they can hook up to. This wouldn't be for firefighting. I wouldn't anticipate.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Okay, Jim.
Okay, wastewater, we move on to, again, the reserves and the DCs are there. The reality for this year is we're doing Rose Lane sanitary sewer main, about halfway up the street from Hagen, because currently, there is no sanitary on there, so that piece of, the road work, the upgrade with Block 75 apartment with Plato is not on them. That is something that we need to service those, residents along there, and especially for source water protection to get out septic systems, around that area. So, that cost will be borne on us when we do that work this year. And then we're, complete the wastewater EA engineering and design, hopefully we get that all, accomplished in 2020. So in 21, we visualized that, the CAP goals, that the township will have increased wastewater treatment capacity in Dundalk to support the growth. So in our request for information, we got, about, for the upgrades, we got about 10 proposals. We met with Triton and GRCA optimization team, and we've come to 2 technologies that we're more interested in and, looking into further. This one here is a picture of what's called a Sager system. That's one of them. It's a submerged activated growth reactor. Again, we're looking at, we put the ICPI application in at $2 to $3 million there. We are carrying in our DCs, and right now that this project would be a full plant, about 16.2 million. So that's why that shows up there. That's for a full plant. That's not a mechanical plant. That's not for a Sager system. That Sager system has about $1 million worth of aggregate stone material, special stone that's in that reactor. Moving on to ideas for the present assessment base. I mentioned about the RFI. We're also looking into lowering the influent wet well at the headworks of the lagoons there. When we've taken you back there, that's where the generator is. If we lower that lift station there, where it comes in, we may be able to gain gravity feed to service along Ida Street, some of it, the south end maybe, and some of Eco Parkway. Currently, any design going into that off those streets would have to have a pumping station. So if there's benefit, if we could do that, lower it down, it may be quite a cost savings to operating a lift station. The other thing is we've retained a parcel, goes out to Eco Parkway in those parklands, that is in front of those headworks for any expansion. And again, that would be where maybe I anticipate the bulk water station would go in. The next one for 23 to 29 development concept, again, going through this EAA and our application with ICIP is with trying to use the lagoons and enhance that system and optimize it. You know, that might be okay. We're saying that we can get out to 2037, I think, in the RFI with it. But I think ultimately, if we're going to continue growing, we're going to have a full plant. So again, I kind of question, is spending a couple million right now okay for 10 years, or should we be leaning towards getting to the end result that we know can do the job at the end of the day? So in 27, we have Glen Elk Street sanitary sewer. That was a proposal back talking a while ago. That would more be the west end, not the east end. Again, that would, at this point in time, require a pumping station, and that would service Ida North kind of too in that area. And moving on to the climate change and legislation foresight. Again, with having the lagoons and more intense events, and currently, like when we experience shutdowns, we're in a holding pattern, we can't discharge. You know, if we're not at a good state with operations where those levels are, with these events, we could be breaching those berms and possibly the integrity of them failing or whatever, so. Again, lagoon, you know, we've talked about the lagoon systems are great, they're economical to operate, they work for us very well, but, that could be a challenge for the future too, especially putting more into what we have. And, the big problem and the solution is to keep pumping it out, right? So, as long as we can meet the compliance criteria to get it out, that's okay, and that's where we're being challenged mostly with the ice coming off the lagoon, so. And then tighter, requirements on those effluent parameters. As soon as we open up this ECA, then, they're gonna tighten the screws down harder than what we are, currently, what targets we have to meet, so.
Oops, see, that's what people are used to, hitting the wrong button.
So I just want to point out this illustration we've taken there, the top left is Bishop pilot project that we were involved with, and again, they saw a lot of benefit from it. We got them their information, but we weren't seeing the end result on those effluent parameters on our thing, so, you know, we wish them well with their work somewhere. There's some short circuiting maybe, is part of the problem, but currently it doesn't meet our needs to get that water out of the plant, so.
Okay, Martin?
I don't know if this is feasible, it's a silly question, but with the lagoons, I think I might have asked you this once before, with that biogas plant coming in, would that take overfill from the lagoons to keep that lower? No.
Not at this point, no, we would have to, they'd have
But
to go
Like
through.
feasibly visioning 20 years down the road, could there be to keep those lagoons active by pumping them out and giving it to them?
No, I don't think so. I think if there was a technology there, it would be LISTEC, and that we put a bit of a plant in at the headworks kind of thing, and then
Oh, by the way.
we draw it in, because they want more of a sludge type content, and draw it down, decant it, put the decant out to the lagoons, and then that solids maybe end up at the LISTEC facility.
Oh, okay.
There is that technology out there. There was one at FCM, and they put the water through a very, very fine screen, and there was solids captured that you couldn't really see if you looked at the water other than being foggy. And then they had this windshield wiper, and they just scraped it off, and that kind of material would go to that biodigester or to LISTEC or something like that. That may be possible, whether it's feasible, we'd have to do some studies.
Any other questions for Jim? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I just want to end off then, if that's the end of the questions, that here's the predictions. The crystal ball holds a lot of promise for Dundalk. Growth will continue if the investment of critical infrastructure is in place and needs to keep ahead of development. Residents will expect increased level of services to support the travel of the community and transportation of goods. Southgate will continue to be a leader in new innovations and technologies implementation. No one said it would be easy. There will be tough decisions along the way. Shaping Southgate may seem a dream away, but today's decisions are the foundations of the future.
Excellent.
Well,
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Can we get a copy of that? That was
Just
great.
thought it up this morning.
I'd
Yeah.
like a copy.
So he's trying to be the star of the show.
Yeah.
Now we'll go to the clerk's department.
Yeah, yeah, way to go, Leslie, go ahead.
Thanks, Jim.
Just a little active follow there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make up for the time we lost on other people's presentations, so just to start here, so we don't obviously, collect development charges, so moving on. Reserve that we just have, for the election, 27,000 by the end of this year. And moving on, the community action plan, our goals typically, were around the citizen engagement. 6A, the website that, has been completed, and we've also done the, PayTM, I think it's called, right? So payment side that people wanted, so that's all completed. 6D, they want council and residents with opportunities for communication with residents. So we did the coffee with council event last year. That was pretty successful, so we want to continue doing those types of things. And the township, for 6E, the township will have acquired and be utilizing online public meeting. This is the Shape Southgate. The project is completed. I mean, we can't argue that it's not being used to its full potential right now, but hopefully we can get that back up and get it out there for people. We have had a couple projects lately that we're going to get up on there, so that's good. Moving on, so 2020 capital. Obviously the video and projection technology, we have money to send and we're gonna get that fixed this year. And operational plans are just to follow through with the cap goals, do the engagement. We've been doing a lot of social media stuff lately. That's been improved a lot. I think people are noticing that, so that's really good. And like I said before, try to get the Shape Southgate up and running again. And we need to do an accessibility plan, so we'll be doing that this year. And then for the customer, we're gonna hire, not this year necessarily, but the customer service coordinator position, we're going to, in a couple of years, maybe it'll replace the vacant deputy clerk position, is kind of the plans we have for that. And then moving on, 2021 and 2022 for capital, we contribute to the election, and then iPads in 2021 for council. And it's repetitive, but the operational plans, I just continue with the online engagement, Shape Southgate, community events with council's participation, and accessibility compliance. 2023 to 2029, same thing again, the election contribution and the iPads in 2025. And if it's at the present assessment base, I would just say continue with our citizen engagement, events, that sort of thing. And 2023 to 2029, if we have the growth, one of the cap goals, goal 6C, was a heritage committee. As the population approaches 10,000, the township would be prepared to create a heritage committee. And future change for legislation. I just put some ideas if we have changes with municipal act amendments, with accessibility, MOFIPA, anything like that. I just put some ideas down there. Question? That was quick, eh?
Very.
Yeah, Jim has a question.
Jim?
Earlier in Dave's report, he mentioned that there was a vacancy for the deputy clerk position.
Mm-hmm.
And you have in here hired customer service coordinator to replace vacant deputy clerk.
So what we would, so right now, it will stay vacant, and then as people progress in roles, we would hopefully see a transition into the deputy clerk role, and then we would hire for a customer service coordinator for front counter, would be the plan.
But there will be a deputy clerk.
Yes, eventually, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, okay, Barb.
Didn't want to disappoint you.
Yeah, I know.
Why do we have to get new iPads every 3 to 5 years? Like, is it
We
the
don't
technology,
necessarily,
we think
but
that,
we
it's
put it, yeah, it put away just in case, but I mean,
okay, so we're not gonna automatically take every 4 years this, like we did the last time, my iPad seemed to be working and now I have a new one. We'll assess that on an individual need basis.
I think so, yeah, that would be ideal.
Great, not seeing anything else, thank you. Derek?
Another quick one.
All right.
Let me get it up before you get done.
Awesome. You can switch to the next slide.
There you go.
$1,981.71. We have a reserve fund for fire, which is $38,000, reserve fund for Melanchthon, which is $58,000 for our services that we provide them, and DC, $106,622. That's reserve numbers at the end of 2020. Next slide. So in 2020, our capital projects are new battery-powered extrication tools. We haven't got new tools in a while. Now they've advanced to their battery powered. You don't have to pull out the generators and all that for that. So it's easy to take out. You can walk as far back into a field you need. It's quick deployment. So out of that, 26,000 will come from DCs for that. Bunker gear, we gotta circulate every year through this. It's only good for 10 years. So a set of bunker gear right now is going for $2,000 a set. That's and coat. DCs, we have $61,000 for that. And for 2020, we'll be getting a new defibrillator, which is $3,000. We have a DC of $3,000, so it's gonna pay itself off there. Operations. So as you guys know, the last council meeting, I brought forward the full-time fire prevention officer as well as the volunteer deputy fire chief. That will be coming next council again. I think we need to plan ahead and do that with the inspections, especially with their goals that were set that the township wants to see more enforcement in the building code as well as fire code for downtown and all commercial buildings. Next slide. In 2021 to 2022, planned capital projects is a pumper tanker fire truck. That's to replace our pump 7. It currently, we don't use it. It's sort of been forgotten about for a couple of years and needs a lot of work. It's outdated. It only takes 2 firefighters in it, and it's standard. Only 4 of us can drive it. So it's starting to rot out as well. So this is going to replace that. I'm trying to get away from the reason it's $670,000 is we don't want a truck that takes two firefighters only. It's kind of pointless. You need to get bodies there. So this will sit 6 firefighters on board. You'll take 1,500 gallons of water with you, which is more than our pumper can take. It's pretty well almost what our tanker takes. So you have that first initial knockdown. You have a lot of water on board. And we can also use it as a tanker if we have our 1 pumper fighting the fire. We have 2 tankers. We don't have to call mutual aid as much. As well as bunker gear. Like I said, you're going to see that constantly just cycle through. Fire station expansion is 2022. We have half of it's paid for from DCs. And then 4 SCBA air packs. That's another thing that constantly we gotta start buying new ones. Ours are, some of them are outdated. They don't have a pass alarm on it, which is a huge safety thing, so we can't use them. That was probably about 8-10 years old. So now it's regulation. You have to have a pass device. So if one of us goes down, if you don't move for a minute, it starts sounding off, so that we know where our guys are and if something's wrong. So gross for that is $34,000. We don't have anything for DCs, but we're gonna have to purchase some of those. Next slide, please. So long-term forecast, if everything stays the same, like I said, bunker gear is required every year. Instead of us doing a massive buy, we try and buy 4 or 5 sets a year. So then we're constantly doing that rotation. New air cylinders every year as well, same thing, rotation. And then the new tanker truck was slated for 2027. Most fire trucks are only for 15 years. After that, you need to replace them. And the one that we have currently as well leaks since day 1. So there's a lot of maintenance costs on that. Based off growth and development, we were thinking of getting a new rescue truck. I've thrown this out to Phil. I don't know if I talked to Tim about this one yet, which is our rescue van. It seats 8 in there. And eventually we're going to have to start switching to LED lights. They don't make the strobe lights anymore. And with the maintenance cost on that, we think we'd be better off to drop down to about an F550 with a mini pump on it. So average cost of that is about $125,000. But then that opens up that can still take 5 people. It opens up to getting to tight driveways. You can run that for medical calls. You can run that to a car accident. If we have a grass fire in the field, we're not taking our big 18, 20-ton truck out to the field. You can take that. That has 200 gallons of water on it. So you can get in and out of tight spots with that. And possibly, depending on the growth too, we might need extra volunteer firefighters just because the call might increase. Well, it will increase with more residents, more traffic on Highway And based off climate change and legislation, you can see a second set of bunker gear. They're going that way where we have washers now based off the cancer, that's been proven. We have to just put legislation down that we have to get our gear professionally cleaned twice a year now, that starts this year. So it's got we send it out to Kitchener. And a second set sometimes will allow us to send that gear out depending on if they have longer turnarounds, because everyone's doing that. We still have gear and firefighters in service. And I was just throwing this one out. Part-time training officer maybe, depending on the legislation. It doesn't mean it's Dundalk. Maybe we'll all group into Grey County and everyone will get a little bit of money for a Grey County training officer. But just based off legislation, there's that one that got rescinded with all the firefighters needing level 1, level 2 service. I can see that coming back. I can see more getting down to train, especially driving as well. There's been 2 accidents in the last year where the Ministry of Labor has got involved because firefighters have rolled over a truck or something like that. So they're going to start cracking open the books, and I think they're going to start coming down a little harder on the fire departments now, because they've sort of been an untouched thing with the Ministry of Labor for a lot of years. And I think that's it. Questions?
Jim?
For air packs, $34,000. When you turn those in, they're scrap, or can they be refurbished?
So for the air packs, you can, a lot of places now when they're upgrading, they're trying to sell them to smaller departments that might still use it, like way up north. They might still want that stuff, they might not have a big budget for it. I know in the past we've bought used air packs from Grand Valley. They've upgraded, and so then we've got them at a discount cost. But you gotta realize when you buy used air packs, you're only delaying the process, because after a certain while they're gonna be dated to you, and you're gonna have to go new or buy more used stuff. So the ones that we have currently, it wouldn't suit any fire departments around here. We could also donate it maybe to Firefighters Without Borders, where they send them to like Dominican, stuff like that, where they can actually use that stuff still. We can donate it, yeah. That's an option for each council to decide on if they want to donate that or try and sell them off.
Yeah, they're tightening up the legislation so much that, like, the ones that you have, I'm not sure if they've got it in yet or not, but you may not even be allowed to sell them. You know, they're tightening it up that much, that unless they're of the present standards that are set out, you know, what some departments are doing is they're saving the obsolete ones and using those for training purposes where there's no smoke, like self-rescue and stuff like that, just so you're beating up an old harness instead of a new one. But donating them, same as fire trucks, sending them somewhere south is Barb, and then Michael, I think. Okay.
I'm just kinda curious why we're waiting to 2022 to get new air packs if we know the ones we currently have are not. We should be getting them there because we want our firefighters as safe as possible. Like, yeah, it's 34,000, but if you're going to calls and, you know, you don't have the updated stuff, I'm not sure why we're waiting that long for something like that.
So with that, there's the ones that we don't need anymore. They're, like John said, they're training packs for now. That's just what, based off the budget was when I first came in here. I was on two months, and that's what the capital budget looked like. So I didn't really alter it too much until I settled into the role. But definitely I would think with the new truck coming, you'd want to put new packs in the new truck. You don't want to fill it with older stuff that you're just going to replace. So that's why I sort of slated then. So once we get delivery of the new truck, there's new packs in there. We don't have to worry about that stuff.
So, to the air pack, you're saying it's now legislated, so there's some things in our budget that we don't really have a lot of say to, and we need to do it, and obviously we need to do it for the safety of our force. But if it's legislated, you have to have the alarm. I agree with Michael, should be waiting to 2022 to comply with legislation. Or is there a window that you have to come into compliance? And to the air packs, is there, in addition to the alarm, do they at least have some kind of locator beacon on them as well? Because if a firefighter goes down in a smoke-filled building, multi-story, it'd be helpful to know where to look for them.
So with that, as for the location, that actually comes down to training. We do a lot of training on firefighter, on RIP, which is if a firefighter goes down, how to find them. So it comes down to training, there's no location device, there's something in an MSA, but you're also wasting more time looking at a computer screen, where is this person, they could be wrong, it could be faulty.
Okay.
Derek, can you talk a little bit more about, how the future works with both our firefighting service and paramedic services, Grey County? How those two work together, both in operations and on, housing and equipment?
So with us in Grey County EMS, currently there's some unknowns. I'm actually dealing with the coordinator right now to see what they can do on scene that can assess our guys or not. We sort of hit a gray area where some agree they will assess our guys, some don't want to because it's extra work, and it takes a long time according to them to do it. So it's been a back and forth fight with them a little bit. As of right now, like you guys know, we've cut back our medicals. I can see maybe with only one ambulance being down here, they might ask to bring it back up a little bit unless they're gonna position another ambulance down here with the growth of the department. That's basically all I got for that one, if that answers your question, or?
Well, I was thinking more of the housing too, like you talk about the new bay.
Yep.
You were gonna, there was some thought, I thought, I'd heard that, you know, you might configure the new bay to take the EMS vehicle and configure it different from what it currently is.
Yeah, so there's the talk of, it comes down to money and you guys as well, whether we build the living quarters onto the next side and put a smaller bay because they're a smaller vehicle, it costs less money there, and if they're off on their own side, we don't really have to worry about our firefighters running in front of their door when they're coming out for one and the same call. And also, I've also talked to some of the paramedics actually, and they said, because most other stations in Grey County have 2 ambulances available to position it, Dundalk doesn't. So there's also talk that Grey County might, if we tell them that we're thinking of doing this, might throw a little bit of money towards us to add the extra bay for them too. So then they have the option of having 2 vehicles inside.
Thanks.
Good. Jim?
Derek, do you have a record of hydrants that are prone to freezing in the winter?
So, we don't have a record of that. We came across 4 this winter that had a freezing issue, and we worked with Public Works and notified us of when they were frozen, so then we'd have to come up with an alternative plan for that. But I guess it all depends on the winter, it depends on, that's more water department, I would think, could answer that question versus of why they freeze. Like, we get notified when they freeze, and then I just have to come up and let my guys know what hydrants are frozen and how, if we have a structure fire here, we need to hit a hydrant over at this location instead of this one.
That's your problem, Jim.
Yeah, we're currently gonna rectify that, it's a drain plug issue. So we're gonna plug the hydrants so no groundwater can get in. And the other thing is that, when we do operations on them for flushing or whatever, to ensure some of them that have had some prone areas that, will, draw that water out of the hydrant barrel. So, it's a dry barrel, basically. And like I said, we're gonna plug some of these barrels too.
Yeah, where you have a high water table, you could have plugged that hydrant. Otherwise, you'll get infiltration rather than exfiltration after it's been used.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Not seeing any more. Let's see, Kevin, go to you next.
My presentation's pretty straightforward, so I'm not expecting a lot of questions here, but anyway. The first 3 or 4 pages are financials, so I'm pretty sure you'll have a chance to read them. Community action plans in there pertinent to us. You might as well get right to the introduction to trends and challenges page, which is about the 4th one. So, when I'm paddling down the river with the kids don't usually wake up when we hit the rapids. We've been paddling down the river pretty soft for a while, and pretty much this is the rapids. Dundalk Arena, so this page here, sorry, the next one.
One more?
Yeah, next one, community action plan, just so everyone knows it. Currently, the Dundalk Arena, the minor hockey is talking about amalgamating with Flusherton. I phoned 4 arenas around, and only one facility out of the 4 said amalgamation worked for them, and that was Ayton. And that's because their minor hockey was almost non-existent, and Durham and Westgrade forced them to use the Ayton Arena. So the possible result of this amalgamation will be less ice due to no community commitment. I would say at this point, possibly up to 50% of our rentals are all Shelburne rentals now, so we really do not have a community commitment to that facility. And I can get ripped on Facebook all they want, that's 100% true. So, this creates an opportunity to get out of the hockey business. You could drop the Dundalk Arena, we could drop the Mount Forest commitment and save the municipality probably upward of $200,000 a year. I'm pretty sure there's probably about 50 municipalities in Ontario that would love to get out of the hockey business. I'm hoping we don't, but this is the truth of the facts here. Critical infrastructure. By committing to a single-use facility, the Old Town Hall means we have no funds for any other facilities in need. Super build grants only come around every 10 years. Pool building is critical, it's 54 years old. Lions Pavilion is critical, it probably should be torn down. In the new recreation plan, I have identified surplus lands. Surplus lands are not maybe 100% of the land, but the land identified in the recreation plan, Proton Station, probably 70% of that park surplus. Drumore Park, probably 50 to almost 75% of that park could be deemed surplus. Hopeville, we're down 2 baseball teams in Hopeville, it could be deemed surplus. Holstein Park, ballpark was used by 1 team, and it wasn't even a Southgate team, it was a team out of Shelburne. The lights will need repair, that's in further. Swinton Park, it's in the master plan as being surplus. Once Hillside Academy, and unfortunately, we know where they're heading, but the other day I was in, there was 8 members at one function, and that's about where they're headed. Memorial Park, there's a lot of bushland in the back that we're maintaining, so some of it could be declared surplus. Buildings identified in the recreation plan. Hopeville Pavilion, only 2 ball teams are there. We had 1 rental last year in the Hopeville Pavilion. Swinton Park Community Center could be deemed surplus within the next 10 years, unless something drastic changes there. And I don't think we can prolong our lives to keep people going into that facility. Old Town Hall, as previous use, before we discussed spending money on that facility, I would deem that facility surplus. Two performances a year prior to it being shut down, and no usage in the basement. We're moving the 1 group to the Eskine Church, and we're moving the other rental group to the arena. Old Town Hall, in my mind, is surplus. Dundalk Arena with amalgamation, and if the community doesn't start supporting that facility, it can be deemed surplus. Surplus services we're providing now, lights in the Holstein Ballpark. We have no local users. We're gonna probably, there'll be a tender coming out that'll cost us $15,000 to replace and fix the lights. Doesn't make sense. Hopeville Ball Lights, with only 2 teams left there, eventually I see that come down to 1. Are we gonna spend infrastructure there? That's pretty much the Rapids. 2020 capital projects. The capital projects, we will be finishing the auditorium upstairs, which includes furnishing, rock wall. Tables are going to be purchased by the reunion committee as a donation, and we've had a beach volleyball court at Memorial Park on our plans for the last 5 years. Operating, we're going to try and line the Holstein washrooms, make them a little more attractive, the public park washrooms. Holstein Park needs landscape from the bridge repair, including removing the hedge and replacing it with a fence, because the gentleman with the high hose there did a lovely job on the hedge there. Holstein Ball Lights, a tender coming in, that'll be a $15,000 fix, we go ahead with that. And ice surface overhead door was identified as a safety concern. The cost of it is $10,000 to fix. 21 to 22, in the capital plans, we had a multi-use facility identified. It was to include a community hall, a theater, indoor pool, social services, senior center, maybe a lobby or common area for new arena if we ever get there. We will not touch that project now until probably at least 15 years, because we will never get the opportunity to get another super build grant for 10 years. And I can't see us putting $12 million into a structure similar to Mount Forest and paying the debt. I would rather attack a new facility such as Chatsworth's doing. They're building a brand new facility at the cost of $10 million. It's only going to cost them $3 million. Capital plans, the subdivision, links and trails for the new subdivisions. We're going to start assuming, I think, some of those subdivisions this summer, and we'll need to replace some equipment. The operating plans, we will put ice next season under the new amalgamation, see the results of ice rentals and the operating costs, and hopefully Ethan in his position can keep the arena as a valued asset to the community. And again, operating will be assuming some of the parklands from the plateau development. 23 to 29, again, funding will be limited for any infrastructure due to the Old Town Hall project. The service side of the Old Town Hall project, I'm recreation, Lacey's culture, she's gonna kick me underneath the table. I don't know who's gonna look after the Old Town Hall and promote that and look after that facility. I've yet to see a plan from the community. I've yet to see any idea what we're putting in that community that we're spending $2 million on. So, did you get that plan?
Nope.
So with that said, we'll be looking at probably a $90,000 deficit minimum on another facility. We've got so many standalone facilities now costing us so much money that we're gonna add another one. Trends and themes identified in similar communities in our growth. We're gonna need a pool. Fitness center is always on the radar. I'm sure soccer's gonna come back to our community. We have no washroom facilities or any infrastructure around our soccer fields. I expect within 5 years, the youth common area in the arena will be too small. I expect us to outgrow that with the community. And I expect the seniors common area, we will be either outgrowing out of the Eskine Center or the new center will be built somewhere for them. Again, another standalone facility. Another trend and theme, we no longer have any community identity or a hub center. Communities 25, 30 years ago, your church was your hub community. Then became your arenas were hub community. Now as our arena's dying, what's going to be our next hub center for our community? Or are we just not going to have a community identity? 23 to 29, basically what will drive recreation is what the new people expect from the community they're coming from. That's what they'll want in this community. Most of the recreation will be from 7 to 9 p.m. So how do we supply enough entertainment for a bed and breakfast community to go from 7 till 9 o'clock? They don't get home till 6, they eat till 7, they look for something to do from 7 to 9, they're back home watching TV and in bed. So in the summertime, we'll probably be looking at linked walking trails and diverse parkland and free activities. Winter season, obviously they're looking for indoor activities, it could be secondary providers. I'm pretty sure the new communities or the people moving in are going to wonder where our indoor pool is. And possibly, if the arena continues its trend, and we may have to repurpose the facility, and we might be looking at an outdoor skating rink instead of an arena. 23 to 29, infrastructure, based on legislation, community demographics, and climate change. The value of recreation in Ontario will dictate future legislation. People are going to have to fight back saying they got to want to do something, but accessibility will be there. Hydro costs, eventually somebody's got to stand up to Hydro and say, we have community facilities, our hydro bill should be free. Community demographics, well, we don't have enough information to really figure out what's going on. I'm pretty sure we all have in our minds where it's probably heading, but, that would probably be an hour-long discussion, not 15 minutes. So, pretty clear, I don't expect too many questions out of that.
Thanks, I think. That was good, Kevin. Brian?
Thanks, Kevin. You know, I really wish you were a little more forthcoming in your comments.
Come
Lot
to,
of-
come
lot
to,
of-
come to the rec meeting.
Oh, I've been to rec meetings before. A lot of good points there, and hard to know really where to start. Yeah, just a lot to think about there, thank you.
Kevin, you mentioned that you're gonna try the ice again for 1 year with that amalgamation, and then are you gonna look at it really hard and say, we're gonna, 2 years down the road, say no ice except maybe outside? Or, since we bought those petitions, do you have the little kids to keep them still skating, visioning for potential years, 10 years down the road? And then have a small thing on the other side?
So, my philosophy in closing a facility is you've got to send notice. You can't close it instantly or your public will hang you. So, you basically give 5 years notice. So this is year 1. If usage if we don't pick up usage such as Swint Park, such as all these facilities, and we don't find a viable usage in these facilities, prime example, Hopeville right now, 2 users, no users in the pavilion. So if I said today we're closing that this summer, we'll probably have a run of 30 people in here on council. So this is the shot across the bow right now. It's up to council to make decisions, but yes, I would expect it'd be pretty tough to tell the community that we are not putting ice in that facility right now. So this is the 5-year warning that our community better start supporting this facility, or the next council maybe deciding what else. So yes, I've made it clear that I do have ideas beyond the 5 years, and that would possibly be turning the inside of the arena into a field house for soccer, baseball, something else. You would heat it with geothermal. The byproduct of geothermal is you could make an outdoor skating rink for the community. But I hope that hockey is still in our community. Hockey's a Canadian sport, and yes, if we were the first community to shut down an arena, it would be probably in the Toronto paper.
And my only other comment was about the Old Town Hall. I know it's in the recreation aspect of the community action plan, but in a way it is a single use, but I still believe that it involves at least 4 other different cap resolutions as an economic development, building up the downtown. So to actually just, for me to call it a single use building, it's not really, it's affected by so many things. Actually having the theater in there, yes, that's a single use, but if the public support is there, it will be used, so.
I honestly, I just love to see a plan. I'd like to know what's going in it.
Jim?
Have you thought about turning the ice surface into an indoor pool and putting the outside rink?
That would be a little tough, but it's, my idea of an indoor pool is probably not the same as what a lot of people are. Like, we'll never afford a Orangeville or a Hanover pool type thing. Actually, I saw a beautiful facility in Aurora last week, a swimming pool with just 4 lanes and a wing off for little kids, and it was probably the perfect size for our community to maintain and support. So, yeah, even to retrofit probably the arena to a pool, it would be cheaper to probably build a new facility or an addition of some sort that is specifically that pool, but attached. The point of multi-use facilities is the fact that we're not paying $20,000 on insurance for the arena, $10,000 for the library, $10,000 for a Old Town Hall. We're not paying 5 heating bills, we're not paying 5 meter charges, we're not paying, plowing 6 different parking lots. Like, yeah, multi-use facility still costs you a lot of money, but it's, the value of a community hub is probably what Dundalk's missing most. There isn't a spot for the new people to come in and meet the old people.
Barb?
I'm gonna, appreciate all of your comments, Kevin. I would argue that the business plan has been, provided. It's what supported the grant to begin with. It's a shame that the vision for the multi-use facility, when it came to council, didn't actually give the vision of, I mean, we talked about indoor pools being, it'll never happen, too costly to operate, but your idea of a multi-use facility is far different than what was presented to council, where it was the municipal offices and a meeting room, and maybe some social services. This is much better vision, and this is what we did not eliminate the idea of a multi-use facility. We just want a better vision of what a multi-use facility is, and I would argue that the Old Town Hall business plan has been presented and is still being developed is not to make it a single-use facility. It has community support and backing. You've made it clear it should be torn down. You've made that very clear. But the council and the community are looking to make that complementary to recreation. That's my understanding. And we should get behind that until we know otherwise. Until we know that there is no funding, there will be opportunities, but to say that it should be torn down and it's a waste of time for a single-use facility, I think that's unfair. So instead of fighting Teen Town Hall, maybe we should be looking at ways we can complement each other, where they can benefit recreation, recreation can benefit from the arts and culture. And it's been made very clear that recreation, arts and culture changes from one decade to another. But mental health is just as, and creativity is just as important as getting out on the ice or, running a track. So, I think until we know what the future holds for the Old Town Hall, we still have our sights set on that community hub, whatever form that takes. And I look forward to having that community engagement. As for the facilities that, could be surplus, you spoke, Kevin, about the Hopeville Ball Diamond and Pavilion. Maybe that's a property that we could look at for a new municipal office. There's opportunity here. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and I look forward to having more.
Yeah, so I don't think this is the time or place, but I guess we're getting into it, to discuss really, that whole community facility. The community facility thing, I think if you looked, this was established a long time ago, collecting DCs for it. So to say that this wasn't part of the plan, I think is a little bit of a stretch. I think what, could I have the floor, please? Anyway, I think what Kevin is presenting is a lot of good information and provocative thought that we need to look at. Do we need lights in Holstein? That's a question. Do we need all that property in Proton Station? Or do we vision it by subdividing it off through planning and looking at a tiny home development, affordable housing project? I mean, can we subdivide lots off of the Drumore Park because there's land there going waste? Could that be severed lots for housing? Because that's an affordable area to construct. So there's all kinds of thinking here. At the same time, I think we would be surprised maybe about some decisions we might have to make, that some we may get lynched and some we may get supported. And I think you'd be very surprised, because that decision on the Old Town Hall, I took more calls about what are you doing? And I think we have to be frank with ourselves. What are you doing compared? I said, don't talk to me. This is a council decision. But, we need to be together and make the right decisions for the community. I don't think there's any decision to be made on Old Town Hall. It's something to talk about. Until we get the grant, that's going to be the telling tale. And I think all these things need to be on the table. But let's not lose the vision of a community facility, because I think in the community action plan, they told us we need that. At the same time, they told us, make a decision on the old town hall, quit procrastinating, because we've done that for multiple council terms, and we haven't done it. So that's there. You know, when, I think the other test will be, if we get to the fundraising section, then we'll know whether the community is truly behind it with the dollars they speak. But I think Kevin, the point that Kevin's saying is, and Martin said something that I think, maybe there's something, it just twigged in my mind. He said about the boards. Could we rip up a hunk of cement and turn the pipes around, and could we have half a rink, and the other half being green turf for people to play tennis or, you know, at the same time? Like, do we need this huge ice rink, or could we have some little house league teams as incubators for these other teams that want to travel the world? But at least give opportunity. I don't know what the answer is. The only thing I think is debatable is, do you still need to have staff there watching this ice rink go on, or an outdoor ice rink, can it be unmanned? Just come and use it, where that's very reasonable to operate. But anyway, these are all discussions. But I think it gets back to, we need to make decisions fairly soon, and why service something that we definitely need today, which I think the lights in Holstein is, what are we doing? Same as Jim's just saying, what are we gonna go to the transfer station in Dundalk and put 400,000 in there when we maybe don't even need it or want it? Do we want these? So that's discussions, because we should be turning assets that aren't necessary into either liabilities or into an asset that we could sell and turn into something our community needs, which is housing, which is in our plan, and focus on those kind of things. But I think I mean, let's not, when I read his presentation, I thought, okay, gonna be some thought on this one, and he's done that. I didn't critique it too much, because I think it's good for us. If we don't look in the mirror, we don't know. So I think the ultimate choice for any of these decisions will maybe have to go back to the community, use our public consultation vehicles to say, do you want this? Do you want the lights in Holstein? Or A, B, or C, or what the rest of them are. Anyway, I thank and applaud Kevin for having, that's what senior staff person can do.
Jason, you have something?
No, I agree with a lot of your points, Kevin. I just disagree on a few. We gotta remember the whole township too. I think we seem to always focus on this hub in Dundalk. And you said, Dave, you heard a lot about the town hall, and I did too. But I also heard a lot about this multi-use facility, people saying, what's this? The people aren't using the facilities now. What makes you think if we build a $5 million facility, they're gonna use it? I know my kids probably aren't gonna, I'm just saying an example. The kids at that end of the township aren't gonna use it. We're not all gonna go to a wedding in Dundalk. The multi-use facility to me, it's, I don't know, it's a lot of money. I know, but I agree with you on these other little things. We gotta, the lights in Hopeville, or the Holstein, forget it. But it's just, it seems this hub in Dundalk is the only thing we talk about. And we're forgetting about the people that are here, and we're gonna take heat over this, or we're worried about the people that are coming, but we have to blend that too. That's
Just a follow-up comment on that. We did commit $1 million to the Mount Forest multi-use facility.
Yeah.
And the purpose was, the thought process 12 years ago was that same 100,000 that we put into getting the people on the west end, that beautiful multi-use facility they have 100% access to. And we negotiated with the Optimus to use the hall. We took the hall portion out of that to get our rates down. The thought was that, and that's why multi-use is in there, to get the east end what the west end's getting. We keep hearing that we're not servicing the west end. The west end has brand new recreation through Mount Forest, and good for Mount Forest and good for Wellington, but we pay for that service. And they're getting a brand new pool coming here too, and wait till we get the bill for that. So we're talking Dundalk, because we have provided identified at recreation at a high, very high level for the west end.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, so, you know, this Mount Forest facility, it's on like any other it's making money? No, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's say, put it all on the table here, recreation don't make money.
Yeah.
So if I wanna pay to take my kid to Toronto, I pay. So that's, we gotta look at that too. We can't just go build a big facility for $5 million, hoping that Joe Blow will bring his kid, because
And that's
I really disagree with the thought of that people will. As far as the new people coming, you said it yourself, 7 to 9 is the only time they're gonna be there, and they're not gonna be there then. We put this new bypass in, sorry to say it, but they're not even gonna go downtown, these people. They're gonna stop at, I don't wanna say it, cause I wanna build Dundalk up. They're gonna stop at Shelburne and Orangeville, grab their groceries, come home, go to bed, and go home. Or go back to work, so. I can't see this multi-use facility.
Michael?
Well, Jason talked a bit about, is that recreation don't make us any money. But we've got all these kids here now as our parents are working away, so we gotta find ways that we can, you know, explore, that we can get them out to the arena. Is it cheaper ice for these guys? Is it cheaper for them to do sports? It's the same cost if you have 10 people in there or if you have 100. It's costing us the same to manage it. So if we can get more people in there at a less rate and keep that place busy versus turning people away because of this, or, minor hockey doesn't want this or that, we gotta try to get more kids in. I was out there in December with Ethan, and they had those kids out there, teach them to skate. And it was like $50 for like 8 sessions. We need to do more programs like that to get the youth involved in the community, because kids can go there after school and skate. Like, it's free skating every night after, you know what I mean? Like, we gotta just get them involved. But they're healthier, they're not on the street, they're not causing problems if you can get them into sports. Most of those kids, turn out a little bit better than the ones that have nothing to do besides hanging around uptown. So if we can keep them going, sure, it's costing us money as taxpayers. We all pay it. I mean, I lived in Dundalk because my kids could play sports. It was cheap. You could never afford to do it, what I did in the city, you're paying $800, $900. So it was a reason. But now with these houses and the prices up here, it's getting harder for parents too. So, what are we gonna do to entice the guys to go to the arena and play sports? I think that's where we gotta look at, trying to think outside the box here. You know what? First year free registration for any minor hockey kid that wants to come out. Why not? What have we got to lose? Nothing. The facility's sitting there empty.
And that's excellent, because taxpayers, if you're willing to support that, then that's fabulous.
We're
Because
supporting it anyway.
that's the dollar,
Well-
that's the balance that
So
we
we're-
need to have.
So to go from where Kevin's going in this conversation, what was proposed to minor hockey is that if you're gonna continue with minor hockey, we don't care how many hours you use, you need to use X, whether X is 10 or 50 or 100 hours a week. But we need $60,000. So let's say, and here's the other problem with minor hockey, it's not us that's the problem. It's the cost that they gotta send off to OMHA for the friggin' fees, and then they put the equipment on the poor kid. Where, if you did these programs that you're talking about, cost the taxpayers $60,000 to fill in for the ice time that minor hockey would leave, maybe that's an investment, because if they have activities in community facilities, whatever it may be, in a swimming pool, in a ice rink, in a ballpark, we know they don't go to burden the health facility because they're active, and they don't get in trouble and burden the police services, which are all costs that, you either pay it one way or you pay it another. So, all these things are important. It's just what level we want to support them.
Barb?
I was actually gonna say it in just a slightly different way to what Dave just said. Recreation, it costs us money, but the increased cost of recreation, arts or culture, decreases our social and our health costs, hopefully in the long run, by keeping the kids and their parents healthy and active, and our seniors. So,
I think the other piece of that whole thing, and the rationale besides what did we start collecting back in, it was 2017 was the second iteration, so it was 5 years before that. This all started, this multi-use facility, 8 years ago, and we started collecting for it. And the whole premise is consolidate. And we sometimes get our heads wrapped around, we have to have something happen in this place. where the idea of consolidation in these hubs that the province is promoting is, and they've been promoting them for 10 years or more, that it's more efficient, staff-wise, it's more efficient, energy-wise, it's more efficient to the community. They can go to one place and provide all these services. So that's the rationale, and it's, you know, the more we diversify to different facilities, the more it's gonna cost us. And we're gonna have to deliver the services, it matters how and how efficient we can do it. And how much funding we can get to do it as well.
Just okay, Brian, go ahead, and then I'll finish up on this one.
Just, I guess on the local parks, the demographics in our small centers, and even in our larger centers, they tend to go in cycles, right? You know, a number of years ago, when my kids were small, there was all kinds of them out at the other end. Well, you know, it takes a while for that generation to come around again. So I would ask you to just be patient. We'll maybe fill that park out at Drumore again someday. But more to the point, is there any idea in the future of a splash pad instead of a pool to reduce the cost that you're talking about, insurance, staffing, all the rest of it? Is there some notion there of some alternatives to a pool like a splash pad?
So that could be coming into plan. Like I said, the pool's gonna need rebuilt before we put any money into splash pad. What you find in the splash pad is you can't make them diverse enough that.
What do you mean diverse?
Well, it's like a playground. You use it once, you get bored with it. So,
Well, the pool doesn't change that much over the
no,
course of the season.
and that's why our pool's just a straight swimming,
Yeah.
it's just a hole in the ground. So, and you still gotta treat the water, still gotta circulate the water, still gotta do
Yep.
everything. Yeah, splash pad's awesome because there's no supervision, no nothing. But does the usage, does it get used enough for the cost? It would be kind of the trends and themes that most people are saying. Now, I know Meaford built theirs, but they built theirs in the shade. So it's, go by it, I've never seen a child in ours. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, they were a great idea at the start. The thought process, I think, is just not as strong behind them anymore, but yes, it's certainly, we thought about it 5 years ago and the community said no to us.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Just before, and then we'll wrap up, a couple of thoughts that I have. One, we see this as a local problem, and we do have our local issues as far as the arena goes, with a big segment of our township not using the public facilities. City of Toronto, I listened to a radio report, City of Toronto repurposed 4 of their arenas for next year. No ice in them. They're doing skating, rollerblade parks, skateboard parks, and it's because enrollment's down so much in air minor hockey. They also figured that down there, it's about $3,000 a kid to have them in hockey, is what it costs between the fees and whatever tournaments or whatever, but it's about $3,000 a kid. So that's 4 they're losing. So it's the same thing as having some shops, empty stores in Dundalk, go through Shelburne, Markdale, Fletcherton. It's not just a local problem. So we've got to find a local solution, but there is a trend that way. The other thing I wanted to say was that, Kevin, your comments in here are exactly what we need for sessions like this. They're exactly what we need to think and look at what we're doing and either confirm direction or change direction depending on what's needed. So thank you for that. Barb, do you have a comment? No? Okay, and then we'll pick on Lacey now. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Hi, how are you? Brains are okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, I've been sitting too long. My brain hurts.
I'm gonna try to save us some time and skip through some of the financial stuff, and we'll go to the strategic priorities. Last year, the library board passed a new strategic plan for 2019 to 2022, and our 3 main priorities are to reorganize the physical space to highlight enhancing existing resources and create new opportunities for community engagement, focus on the core competence of the library staff as a trusted provider of guided access, and be inclusive to all community members. So we have, I didn't post them here, we do have some more specific goals for this year going into next year, and some of those are going to be talked about in my presentation today. Next slide, please. So our capital projects for 2020 and operation plan, you can see we have library collections replacement, growth, computers and e-resources, furniture, and putting money into our reserve for library expansion. For continuing 2020, some of the goals we have for this year is to evaluate and reorganize the physical space of the library to make it more accessible, functioning, and inviting experience. We're going to be trying to do this at a very minimal cost using what we already have, which is reorganizing our space to have better flow. We want to upgrade our patron technology, both the hardware and software, so replacing a couple of our really old patron computers, but also making sure all the computers have Microsoft Office. Right now, some of them have Open Office, and we're having a lot of compatibility issues with our patrons trying to bring in documents. We're working on establishing a Library to Go program as part of our outreach to the community. So this program will be for those who cannot physically make it into our building. We're looking for volunteers this month, we'll be training in March, and hopefully implementing a pilot project for Dundalk in the spring. If we're looking for volunteers, if anybody's interested about that. We're going to be reevaluating our collection development plan to include a focus on diversity. This is actually a very big topic of discussion that was at the OLA conference this year. Is making sure your collection is reflecting your community as a whole. We have a lot of newcomers coming to this community, making sure that they can find themselves in our collection and the things that they need. And then the other thing we're working on is to develop a communication plan, especially for our social media. For 2021 and 2022, the only thing I'm going to point out financially is we have an increase for furnishing for 2021, and this is going to be looking at turning our mill room into more of a program room as opposed to a meeting room. It's being mostly used for programming. Not that you couldn't still have meetings in it, but we want to kind of look at making it more into a functional space with flexible furniture, and also looking at our open spaces and how we can make that into a bigger programming area with some flexibility. A lot of libraries are now purchasing shelves that are on wheels so that they can be moved out of the way, tables that can be moved a lot easier for staff to carry, things like that. The library's e-resource collection, especially ebooks and e-audiobooks, are seeing a steady rise in circulation, and the funding is needed to increase our e-resource collection to accommodate the growth in the community. A lot of our audiobooks are being used, especially with a lot of commuters, people who are driving into the city, so we're seeing a big increase in that, and not so much our CDs anymore, because a lot of the newer vehicles don't have CD players. So we're sort of seeing this trend towards the e-audiobooks, so something we're going to have to consider. And then continue to upgrade our patron computers and technology, and this would include our new imagination stations that we've just purchased. Next slide, please. This is my pre-chart that I made for you guys, just to put the information a little easier. The only one I'm going to point out is the library expansion project. Right now we have slated for 2028. So for 2023 to 2029, we're going to increase our outreach programming so that we're getting outside of our building a little bit more, continue to go to the farmers market, look for other ways to engage with the community, especially the newcomers who haven't figured out what a library is yet. Technology updates and continue to grow the library's imagination stations. Technology is going to be something we're looking at every year, making sure we're keeping up with technology. A lot of libraries are creating these maker spaces and things like that, and these newcomers going from the city are expecting us to have this as well. So those are some things we need to continue to discuss. Enhance our library e-resources to meet the needs of the community. So this isn't just our e-books and e-audiobooks, but looking at different databases. Are we going to need these to accommodate the needs of our community? Consider our programming space. As I had mentioned, do we need to have more flexible furniture in the future to accommodate our growing needs for this programming? For future development growth, I know we've talked about this in the past, but do we expand the library? Do we expand within our own building? We take over the entire building? Do we expand beyond? Do we expand somewhere else? These are things that we need to talk about. I know the board has been talking a lot about it. And back to the diversity needs within our collection and our programming, we are starting to see some ESL in our community, English as a second language. What's the library's role going to be in that? Do we have to carry those resources? Do we have to offer programming? Do we look at any resource called Mango Languages that offers not only English as a second language, but teaching other languages as well? And then our technology expectations, as I had mentioned, with a lot of these people coming up from the city, they have much greater expectations of what the library is supposed to have than what we can currently afford. So we need to continue to have those discussions about what that's going to look like in the future. A couple last things to consider is what's the library's role in the downtown revitalization? I know the board's been talking about this, and the board's really interested in continuing to be a part of that conversation. Is what is our role? Are we the community hub? Are we one of few community hubs? So what is our role in that, as that will continue conversation? And the other one that's come up a lot lately is our local history collection of microfilm. Our microfilm machine has been broken for at least 2 years, because it's been broken since I started here. To replace it, I think at the low end would be $6,000, probably more. Or do we digitize it? That's the other question. I've talked to a couple other libraries that have digitized their microfilm, and it could cost us anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 plus a yearly fee on top of that. Or do we get rid of it? So these are some things we need to talk about in the coming years. When I first started, I'd say I didn't get very many requests, but we're starting to see more and more people getting interested in looking for their grandparents, looking for the history of their house that they've just moved into. We're getting a lot more requests. And the libraries that I talked to that, this is West Grey and Grey Highland, said when they uploaded all their stuff online, it's now their most used online resource. Getting 200 hits a month, if not more. So it might be something to consider.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Brian?
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Lacey, for that. Talked about expansion of the library potentially in 2028, was it?
Yes.
How accurate do you think that is? Is that a number plus or minus, or are you like pretty hard on that? Sorry?
That depends on you guys. But I think
Well, I was wondering from a perspective of user.
I think we're doing okay right now, but the programming space is kind of one of our issues. We're noticing we can't offer enough. We're getting double the amount of our wait list, but we just can't fit the bodies into the room. So that's one of the issues we're coming across. Our collection is growing, and we're running out of space in our collection. So I think we originally had said 2027, and then as Liam and I worked through the budget, we pushed it back a year. But I think when we're looking at this multi-use facility, the old town hall, the library, these are the sort of things, we need to make sure the library is included in those discussions. Because I don't think you guys want to be building 3 different buildings at the same time. So it's the priority for the community.
Yeah, we heard the standalone part doesn't work.
I did hear that somewhere. Barb?
And just to, yeah, there's a placeholder for library expansion, but the conversation has been that, when the community hub happens, depending on what's in there, if the police move out of that space and the food bank moves out of that space, the expansion could very well be an internal expansion, which would give us more programming space. So we're looking at all those avenues as a board. May not actually require an external physical expansion or, a second floor or anything like that. And DC, refresh me, under DCs, it covers hard collections. But that doesn't, the e-books and the audiobooks, they're not DC eligible, correct? At the present time?
Been discussing that actually in the last week, because there is a section here for electronic reference materials, but the problem with reference online databases is their subscription. So once that money runs out, are we going to maintain that cost? So does that money mean it goes towards ebooks, which is a one-time purchase? We've got to have a few more discussions with the department about that one.
Jason?
I was just curious, do the Mennonites use the library at all?
Yes.
Okay.
We have
so
I'm just wondering, like, we talk about the programs for the new people coming from the city, we have a lot of them moving into the area too, which is a big part of the population, I didn't know they were using it, or do we have any specific programs for them, or?
They do not come to our programming as of right now, with the exception of a few. We are gonna be offering some quilting and sewing programming, we're kinda hoping it might be something that draws them in. But for the most part, they go right to our Christian fiction selection, grab their books, and they're out of the area. So we're interested in finding ways to engage with them. I just recently went to a presentation with Wellington County, and they do have a program working with the Mennonites, so I might pick their brain. But as of right now, they don't really come with a program.
I think also if you talk to, the community health center, because, they do have Mennonites involved with, quite a few of their programs that they're running out of the Erskine Church and things like that.
There's English as a second language for some people that, that was being run for the ladies, I know. Maybe the other thing, just while I have the mic, I'll just speak about, like, I think, obviously, we're not gonna have to worry about it in this term, but like 600,000 at the library, a lot of money. Where, I think we can move the OPP out and, food bank out, and likely, 100,000 would do a lot in refurbing the inside of the building. I think, the discussion there earlier was, we got the Erskine Center that's being redeveloped, and we're gonna take on, maybe the first meeting in March, maybe later, we'll do a tour of the new Erskine Center after it's redone. Goes into a couple weeks, and the, auditorium, the arena auditorium, I think will be pretty well wrapped up by then too, so. Then you can see that, but, we're gonna have to be cognizant of being able to use these other facilities and amalgamate where we can.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes.
You have, did you have another? Oh, you want to go to the bathroom?
Well,
Okay.
not just me, I'm just being a
We could take a break.
Let's take a quick break. I'll hit the button in a minute. Get ready. Ready.
Take the pencil away from him, too.
I don't know, did I? Yeah, I'm thinking that myself.
Picking on Vermont.
Yeah, but all seriousness though, for more, you could triple the size for more, what do you need all that land that's there for?
It's actually gonna be drove, cause we're getting that
If
back.
the land was donated, we can't even sell it anyway, don't you have to give back? That's right, good point. The land was donated.
Who's gonna show up to worry about it?
You'd be surprised, there's like 108 people out there. Might even be
I respond back to the nation.
No, it's true though, we can't just sell it if we gotta give
She
to it.
lives in suburban Vermont, so be careful.
Oh, I know where she lives.
She's not downtown, but she's in the suburbs. But, what do we need 2 ball diamonds in Hopeville for? What do we need lights? Eventually, I could see even lights in Hopeville, what do we need that for?
Well, I just warn you, I'll let you fly that flag, that you wanna take the lights out of Holstein, and you'll have chambers full.
Well, go to it.
I'm just telling you.
And then let's go around, let's be serious though, go around the room and ask them who's switched them on in the last 10 years. They're
I'm
beautiful
just
to look
saying,
at.
I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying.
I know, but we can't make decisions based on how full this room is. We need to make decisions.
When did we start doing that?
Yeah,
Community
that's
action.
before.
Oh, come on
When did that happen?
The community action plan, what tells you.
Oh!
Maybe not related to the lights at Wolfson. We didn't survey that one, but
Yeah, when did we
hey,
start?
if they said council is easy, everybody's lined up.
Do people ever use, like, Hopeville, just go in and use it, like?
Some of the Mennonites do it.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
Yeah.
Or are they scared that you shouldn't go in if they're not paying a rental, or,
The Mennonites do use it.
We got, last summer there was, I'm gonna say 2 or 3, maybe even a handful of weekends, the Mennonites come into the Vermont Park. But
All of it or just 50%?
just the tiny home section.
Yeah, okay.
They're a smaller piece.
Other than the playground, what do they use it for?
You talking about Mennonites specifically?
No, I'm talking about Vermont Park. How many times do you see people in the all the time? So, I mean, if we got one Hopeville or Holstein, well, they go there, it wasn't there. It's just, I look at that land, like, there's some that we don't even cut the grass.
More?
We cut the grass.
We cut all the grass.
Right up to the front,
No, that's a
we
lot.
That's a lot.
don't, we don't own right to the front.
They just sold that lot.
So even more, why we cutting the grass when people don't walk on it? Like,
Well, okay, let's stop cutting the grass in the Dundalk Cemetery. How many times do you
That's
see
different.
people walking in there?
well,
You don't bring them in.
Yeah, that's true, yeah, yeah,
I don't think the people that live there will complain.
that's true,
that's true, that's true.
yeah.
Well, we could go on and debate this for a long time.
Not lately. Somebody get mad before too long.
It doesn't, it's only money, that's the problem.
Oh.
As long as people are willing to pay for it.
Keep telling her it's only love, honey.
Yeah.
The problem is, as soon as you find money, there's another hole to put it in.
That goes with what you were saying too.
Okay, sorry about it.
Oh.
All right, medicated.
Who's medicated?
He'll be in
Scrambling up every few years and then come up with a plan to follow, and then revisit and scramble it all again and.
We'll be on back.
I don't get it, so.
Quick, Clint. It's any controversial things, cut it.
You're not laughing.
So you might be right.
Economic development.
That's the one I have, so. Okay. Well, in the interest of us leaving at some point. Yeah. You have your 3 minutes now.
I'm sure Clint will be with me that you're saving the best to last.
Yeah, economic development that's last.
Oh, we're almost last. Almost last. So the building department. Let some slides roll there, please. ED person. Building department. Unfortunately for us, we collect your development fees, we get cursed out, we get all kinds of things, and we get absolutely no benefit from it. There's my say on building development fees. Is that a cry? I can't believe that you actually have feelings, Mr. Melvin. Not development fees, I do not. They don't slide it faster. Reserve building operation surplus, currently standing about $460,000. That's unaudited. It may change a little bit depending on things. I've got a little note up there, the OBO recommends a surplus of 2 to 3 years budget. That's to cover, unfortunately, the building permits do not run on a yearly financial basis. You take a building permit out in December, that money gets stocked into surplus if I haven't used it in the budget, but I still have the inspections and everything to do the following year. So that's why they say, keep money in reserves or you're going to be in trouble. We had a slowdown, you still have inspections to do, so you must continue with those inspections. Okay, community action plan. Goal 2, revitalizing downtown Dundalk. It was put forward, the residents of the municipality, the township, wish the Dundalk area to be revitalized, and give more broader range of business opportunities. So strategic initiative 2D, the township will have taken aggressive action to enforce compliance of downtown buildings with the property standards, fire codes, building codes, etc. We will be working hand in hand with the fire department and bylaw officers to gain the compliance we can downtown and to other buildings in the township as well. Next slide, please, Dave. Our capital projects, operating plans for next year, for this year, 2020. I am planning on purchasing a drone. I had said previously I was worried about legal ramifications and I was looking for results on that legal ramifications. I'm trying to answer, pre-answer your question. And I was looking under the wrong situation. I was looking at it as the Ontario Building Code. Wasn't finding very many answers there, but when I was talking to a bunch of bylaw officers one day at a convention, they said, oh yeah, it's been used all over the place, there's all kinds of information on our website, and lo and behold, there is. And court cases where it's been held up and used as legal grounds. So I am going to proceed to purchase the drone this year and get training. My plans for 2021, no capital project. 2022, lease or purchase an additional vehicle, depending on the need. That could be because of extra staffing, which I can mention earlier. Okay? Or later, I should say. Next slide, please. Okay, 2023, replace the electric car. I know that's before its time, but as I said, it's got a 5-year warranty. I hate to whine a little bit, but this is my 4th week already without the electric car. It went for service over. This is the 4th week going without. And then in 2025, replace the 4x4 SUV. And again, 5 years, replace an electric car maybe. If we purchase it again, it depends whether they're even available in the future. But it is a nice car. It is as long as it's under warranty, I believe it's an economical car to run. And it does catch the eye of a lot of people that we talk to when we're out on inspections. So it's a good vehicle that way. And 2029, replace an additional vehicle. Cost of about $40,000 to $45,000 each. Visioning statement for the future development growth, 2023 to 2029, part-time, seasonal, or full-time building official requirement, conditional growth. You will notice as our paperwork Dave used before, there was a 63% growth in building permits. The building department managed to keep their head above water this year. I believe at a cost of maybe the legal end of, we did our inspections, we did our job according to the Ontario Building Code, but our legal ramifications maybe were not held up quite as quickly as I'd like them to be. I know I have a vision of things moving fairly quickly. Not that I want a name of being a hard nose, but I would like to move quick enough that people know that we mean business, and when I talk to them, we mean business, not you're going to push me to the side. Unfortunately, with the extra building code permits, that's where our time was devoted to this year. So, okay, Dave. 2023 to 2029, plan for new infrastructure, service development, community graphics, climate change. So full compliance with barrier-free design for public, private, and government facilities. Everything's supposed to be building code compliant by 2025. At this time, we're at 2020, 5 years out. The regulations are all about what should be done and how things should be done, but we do not have a clear vision of what to do if they're not done. Whether we have to lay charges and start to go after people, or whether we ignore them, or whether I'm not 100% sure at this time. I don't think anybody in the industry is, by what I'm hearing. But it could become a job to visit the different organizations and businesses in town to try to bring them up to the code compliant, barrier-free design. And of course, then we have climate change, migration strategies, efficiencies to meet future changes are likely. The building board has said it will be zero energy-free buildings for the year 2030. This may or may not slow down construction. I know they are building, or they have a couple of model buildings that are zero energy right now, but the cost is way out of the ballpark. I would imagine this date will be extended, but we'll see. And that's the end of that thing, unless there's questions. Hopefully I solved some of them.
Well, Kevin didn't think there was gonna be a lot of questions on his. We saw where that went, so let's see how you did. Any questions or comments? Sure, go ahead, Brian.
You mentioned, you did answer my question on the phone, by the way, other than, well, anyway. You mentioned legal there, and I guess the question isn't specifically directed at your department, but maybe Dave would be better to answer the question about, like, do we see going forward, we've got more residents, Bev talked about more compliance issues. Where do we see our legal costs and those types of enforcement issues going? Like, are we...
Can I speak to that first, Dave? That's why I'm saying I think I was slacking in my duty before. I'd really like to get out there and move quickly and hit hard a few times, and hopefully people will say, wow, this guy means business, or this township means business, and the legal ramifications will slow down. I can tell you that in our subdivisions, our newer areas of town, there are already complaints rolling in about bylaw infractions.
So are we, are we looking at ramping up our expenses, or?
Let me talk a bit to that. Since we even brought, when I started, I mean, it was a complaint you looked after and it went away. As soon as we brought this to light, that we've got bylaw enforcement going on, just seems this stuff comes out, it keeps coming out of the woodwork, so people are less tolerant, so there's more of it. We haven't had adequate expertise because we haven't been in that really business, that space. Others answering questions on the phone, kind of say, come on, let's work with them. But Bev's done a fair bit of training and gone to courses, and I think what we need to do, we have adequate funding in budget, I believe. It doesn't cost a lot to do this kind of stuff, but we have a fellow that we work with up in between, what's that?
Blue Mountain,
Yes,
you're talking
yes.
solicitor or
She's a paralegal, I
Paralegal.
Yes, and Brian Green is helpful too, to take this stuff to court and defend it. I mean, I mean, our defense costs, at least when we get them in the courtroom, it's getting them there, is, I don't know, $600, we'd like to get the whole thing done, which isn't severe, and we don't take that many there, but I think where we're going to be doing a better job is the timelines of turnaround. And now that we got full-time administration, Kathy got a lot more adept at the building stuff, and we're now, if we go out and do an inspection, we're kind of going to zone these bylaw areas or bylaw fractions. And if somebody's going out to do an inspection on a building, they can go by and see what the progress is. And our goal is to inspect once a month. And if, usually they go in 30-day spurts that, okay, you need to solve this in 30 days. Check up on 30 days, haven't done it. We're going to go from letters to orders and to summonses much quicker than we have in the past. So to get compliance and solutions faster. Sometimes that isn't, I mean, sometimes there's reasons why we can't, because, you know, seasonal issues and all that sort of stuff. Winter complicates stuff sometimes for cleanup, but that's the goal, to get more of a routine, that it's not something we're going out of the way to do. When we're out in the, say, certain area of the township, we're out in the west end, we can do both building and bylaw at the same kind of thing. It's just a matter of maybe taking a picture, or knocking on a door, or whatever.
Launching the book, The Drone.
Yes.
Maybe.
Michael and Bert?
Okay, in saying this is fine, I'm just kind of wondering, how does a financial come? Because the building department is,
So there's allocation funding for them, for bylaw. And then on the timesheet, they code time.
bylaws, so then it goes to the other one because then it's taxpayers' dollars
Yes,
versus those. Because I don't want all this extra money to be going on there, and
no,
the building permits are gonna go up in price because
no,
he's doing all this other work on the side.
no.
Okay.
Bert?
Actually, that was one of my questions, just to verify that we're talking about both building enforcement, bylaw
They're separate,
enforcement,
yeah,
and that's
two separate.
covered under your department, and then the property standards is covered under the taxpayer. Sorry. My other question, too, with regard to barrier-free by 2025 for private, public, and government facilities, when a person's place of business is physically challenged by the height of the facility from the road, what, like, they're mandated, they have to come up with a plan to make that accessible, or is it barrier-free once you're in the facility? That's my one question. And the other one is, if the electric car is under warranty and it's been 4 weeks in the shop, are they providing a loaner?
Yes.
Should be. You said you were without a car for 4 weeks.
Okay,
Without the,
I'll answer that one first.
Yeah.
I did receive a loaner when I required one, but I haven't required one, I haven't bothered with the loaner. It's actually parked out here in the driveway, just,
Thank you.
if I don't require it, I'm not using it. Same as if the car isn't required, it sits down in the shop. We only run as many vehicles as we need to do the inspections. And barrier-free access currently, if you own a business or anything public, whatever, you must
must supply access to the business to everybody through the front door. Not the side door, not the back door, to the front door. So yes, this is going to cause some concern for the town of Dundalk and a few other areas. There is some discussion on the OVO website right now about portable ramps to be able to be moved up and down the Main Street, and everything I've heard out of that says, do not allow them. They are not safe, they're not building code compliant, and only opening yourself up for a lawsuit. So maybe they will improve by 2025, maybe they will not.
Do you have a driver on those portable ramps? No, forget it.
Yes. Go ahead.
So to that, the requirement to be barrier-free access through the front door, just as everyone else, could put most of the businesses out of business. And it also, not just Dundalk, but the Holstein General Store has always had accessible access, but not through the front door. So is this a reasonable demand by the province for the rural infrastructure that, where you've got 3 steps up and very little space inside?
Dave will be
So, let me take a run at that. I mean, portable ramps, I mean, that's not a solution. That's only a way to create future litigation. Because it would have to be on municipal property, and to me, we wouldn't allow that. But Jim brought up the point, Proton Street, it's an accessible disaster. So we need to do something. I mean, we need to help these businesses. That's why we're in the economic development business. And maybe we can do something through planning for Holstein Store. If that impinges on the county road between the county, I mean, you need to do some sort of amendment, encroachment, whatever. But we need to allow businesses to be able to function under new legislative regimes. So, but that's why we've been talking about this kind of Proton Street, because the only way to solve it is streetscaping, to allow some access, ramping on municipal property, get rid of sidewalks and patios outside and that sort of thing would be a place to come to. And again, community action plan says so. Need to do something to help them.
Okay. Jim, and then Brian.
Councillor Green brought up the Holstein Store. The steps on the outside, so they have to be compliant with a ramp or some other feature.
By 2025, they should have a
But when you
barrier-free.
get inside, there's about 6 steps going up. How does that comply?
It would have to be compliant with the barrier-free access.
Even if it's inside the building?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
And washrooms.
washroom facilities, if it's required.
No more basement.
Brian, your turn.
I would suggest that a pragmatic person would say, we're a long way from Toronto. There's a lot of places around southern Ontario that are gonna need a lot of work before anybody finds out the case, so I'm not sure it's really a problem.
Well, we said it wasn't,
Unless we make it one.
we said it really was, but we won't have a choice. No, if it's legislation downtown Toronto that we do this across the province,
Bring it on.
and somebody comes in and gets hurt and we haven't enforced it, it's the deepest pocket. I know, I don't like it any more than you like it, but that's reality. It's management of risk in municipalities. Crap,
Governments change every 4 or 5
well, we hope so. But you know what? This accessibility thing didn't come along yesterday.
I know.
We've been talking about this for 2 council terms.
We'll talk about it for another 2 or 3.
Well,
It's only 5 years away. When we started, it was about 12 or 15 years away.
But I
Anyway,
think that's the issue though, is I don't think it is gonna be 5 years. I think they're gonna push it back because it isn't just a rural thing. When I was working down in Toronto, you go along the lake shore or anything like that, they'd have to raise the road 3 feet to comply in a lot of places and that. Bev?
I was just going to say, I forgot the word somebody used about government. The two of them don't go hand in hand anyways. But practical thinking, I think is the word. The other thing is, there's definitely gotta, I don't know whether the finances are there, but there's definitely gotta be some help for these businesses in different areas. Because otherwise doors are gonna close all over Ontario.
I think the key for us is whatever does come down the pipe, we've gotta work with our people and see what they can do for when and whatever that is.
As I also said, I have no than a requirement.
Mhm.
You know, it may be enforced on a complete basis, as Dave says, we have a visitor from an area that knows their laws, all they have to do is make a complaint and we're done.
Okay, thanks, Bev. What?
Good afternoon, council. I may not be last, but I can tell you this. Planning touches on every single one of the presentations that have happened before me and even the last one, so.
Be still my heart.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
in that sense, it's an overarching, discipline. So it takes over everything in some fashion. Whether Dave likes that or not, I don't know. Okay, so can I get to the first slide?
Oh, yeah.
So, this is our, DC charges, for planned projects, for our official plan updates, urban expansion, zoning bylaw review, and the community improvement plan. So next slide. I summarize this in this chart here. We've got some reserves to the side, for the zoning review, and or, new bylaw. Planning, reserve for OMB, that may look like a lot for, it's now the LPAT, just so we're changing it. Yeah. That may look like a lot, but, if you get a lawyer and an engineer involved in anything, they'll eat that up pretty quick in a couple days, so, that to me is a reasonable reserve for that. Then you have the strategic plan. I think this is supposed to be for official plan things, although it says strategic plan. Maybe it's a mislabeling thing, I'm not sure. And then we go down to potential DC reserves, what we could get out of if we collected all of the DC money, which is $43,875. And then here's the actual of what we've collected to date, which is about 10,000. So, next slide. So, there's basically four main projects that we've got on the go. First one is the commercial industrial growth study. So, growth demand forecast is to be presented to council next month. That's my plan. Basically, we've done a supply review, which you guys saw last June, I believe it was. And so now we've got the growth demand, which looks at basically what we're here today, the expected growth, how we're going to deal with it and where we're going to put it. Following that is the urban expansion study. So from that growth study, we then justify expanding the urban boundary or boundaries if it's not just going to be Dundalk and it's going to be Holstein or some other place. We look at that. Now, the key component to this is servicing capacity. If you listen to any of us today, I hope you listen to Jim's comments on wastewater, and that if you want to be in the growth business, you need to make sure you have your servicing there for the growth. Otherwise, your growth is done. So if you listen to anyone, listen to that. If we can continue on. Official plan 5-year review. So what I'm anticipating happening with this is following the growth review and the expansion justification. We'll enter into a point, I'm hoping from, like say, July to the end of the year, where I'm going to be bringing forward some discussion papers on policy that I think we should be bringing forward in terms of updating our plan and whatnot, whether it's ag policies on severances, because that was always a fun one, whether it's policy on recreation, on where we want new rec facilities or not. Do we want to promote that in our official plan? Those kinds that'll happen at the first part, where I intend to use Shape Southgate, quite a bit more, to try and get some more opinions from the public. The survey worked to a certain extent. We got a lot of, discussion around, taxes and, roads and things like that, but, I wanna hear some more, in a different format. And then our last project, I hope to have wrapped up in the next, couple months, actually. The community improvement plan, a good portion of that was already done. We simply now, unfortunately, the public meeting we had was not an official public meeting because the notice, wasn't given to the Planning Act guideline. Therefore, it couldn't count as an official public meeting for Planning Act purposes. So we're now gonna hold a public meeting very shortly for that, hopefully the end of March. And then with that, hopefully the next meeting will pass the official plan amendment. That will then allow us access to that $20,000 county grant that we then have up until December 31st, 2023 to divvy up. So the CIP will give us the tools on how we want to do that and to who we want to give that to. And if I recall, it's not just one community, it's the community of Dundalk. Or sorry, the community of Southgate is, as opposed to just Dundalk. So we made it more inclusive in that respect. Next slide. So this is where all of those projects fit in the cap. 1E, update the official plan and zoning bylaw to provide flexibility for business, help to reduce processing requirements, and help to provide more opportunity for success. 3A, appropriate policies, incentives, and development partners. The township will facilitate a significant increase in the supply and variety of both rental and purchasing housing accommodation within Southgate. Now, I anticipate this will be a couple different prongs, if you will. The private side will certainly dictate some of this because they're ones with the deeper pockets in terms of what they see happening. But our official plan, when we bring forward, this is one of the policies that I was anticipating bringing forward on what we as a municipality want to encourage and how we want to go about doing that. And we can spell that out in official plan policy. So that's one of the papers I'm looking at bringing forward for you guys for discussion. And then 2B, the township will help develop, adopted and implemented a community improvement plan, which is what we just talked about. So in 2 months' time, that will be done. So moving on. So beyond 2020, so 2021 to 2023, the comprehensive zoning bylaw, given its complexity and whatnot, and just the demands of time to get that done, I'm suggesting it might be an idea to look at hiring an outside consultant to prepare a new comprehensive zoning bylaw for the township. Our township bylaw has served us well. It's since 2002. So it's had its course, so maybe it's time to update some of those zoning provisions to meet today's standards in terms of thinking about smaller lots, smaller footprints, removing the minimum size requirements in our bylaw for housing. Right now, you have to, for a residence, you have to have 1,130 square feet for a residence. Doesn't matter what zone you're in. So reducing that might help with affordable housing by allowing for smaller housing to be built. So options like that are some of the ways we can help with that. There's a new DC study that's in in the fees and charges that will be required in 2020. And then the CAP, which is the strategic plan that drives all of this, gets up for renewal in 2023. Okay, next slide. So, moving beyond that, the increase in the wastewater treatment plant capacity is a requirement, in my opinion, in order to service the existing approved plan. So we've actually approved more units than we have capacity for right now, which is fine, because we've let the developer know that under no uncertain terms, that's in the site plan, or subdivision agreements, et cetera. But the fact is, we're saying, when they get it built out, we're gonna have all this growth. Well, if we don't keep up our end of the bargain with that servicing, there won't be any. So again, that's a very important part of maintaining the growth that we have. Official plan review. Once an update is approved, it's required to be reviewed approximately every 5 years. Assuming approval by the county in 2021, a review would be started sometime in 2026-ish. The cap gets updated every 4 years, so in 2024 or 2028. Next slide. So, in case I haven't hammered on it enough, new infrastructure is absolutely essential that the township continue to plan for and construct additional servicing in Dundalk and other places if you're talking about other services other than water and sewer. Whether we're talking about recreation build or other buildings, it's important to maintain those and plan for them. Oh, you skipped. So the increase in capacity is absolutely vital to continue the growth. From my perspective, I've been seeing a lot more zoning bylaw enforcement issues where there's been a lot more zoning infractions, I guess, if you will, where people are just not doing what they should be doing within that zone, and then we get a complaint and have to act on that. That workload is increasing more and more as I don't know if it's part of what Dave was speaking to, where we've opened up this can and now people are just getting less tolerant with people, but it's taken up more and more of my time. For the planning department perspective, I would foresee in the next 5 to 10 years, you review staffing and then you might see an increase of like a planning technician being added into that mix to help out with processing of the files and dealing with enforcement complaints, that sort of thing, if things continue to increase. But I'm saying to assess it in 5 to 10 years, not that we have to have that. So, next slide. So, this is another piece that, again, ties closely with Jim's. In order to address climate change, it's recommended that the township's engineering standards be reviewed to make infrastructure more robust in dealing with climate change. So when we're planning new subdivisions, and we're planning those stormwater facilities and whatnot, make sure they're over capacity from what the current standard is to an enlarged capacity. What that number is, that's for discussion with the engineers, but I think that's an important way of dealing with climate change. Everyone says dealing with climate change is just about reducing your carbon emissions and all that. No, it's about addressing what's coming in terms of you're not going to be able to stop everything, so you might as well get prepared for it. There's also going to be additional legislation, I can guarantee you, which will probably require updates to the official plan and zoning moving forward in the future. And I just wanted to sort of summarize, I think that's my last slide, summarize things though. I heard a lot in some of these other presentations about a community hub and redevelopment of the downtown and the library being a part of that and whatnot. Planning ties all that together in an official plan and coming up with that, and I really hope we can do that. Because here's another idea that I didn't hear mentioned. When you talk about a community hub, it doesn't have to be recreation focused. It doesn't have to be culture focused. It's great if it's all of those things, because the more things you have going on in a place, the more chance there is that people are gonna be there to see what's going on. We're anticipating a new school sometime with this growth proceeding. Hopefully in the not too distant future, maybe that's a time where you actually partner with the school board and have something like a pool attached to a school, where it becomes part of that facility and it becomes a community hub. And that's it. When I grew up in the 80s, we had a pool and a library attached to the school, and a community tennis court, all in one spot, and there was always somebody there. So there's no reason why you can't partner with these other organizations. We know it's going to happen, so maybe that's an opportunity. So it's just something to keep in mind. And lastly, I would say that just keep an open mind with respect to with planning. Yes, you get individuals saying, well, we want to preserve heritage, or we want to preserve recreation, or we want to, like, there will be champions for each organization, but you guys get the job of balancing that out, and planning to a large part helps with that. So just keep that in mind, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Barbara?
Thanks, Clinton. When there was some talk at Roma about land lease communities where they continue to own the infrastructure, but the homeowners just rent the land, like the Sandy Cove Acres. When Ken was talking about, just brainstorming about redevelopment of some of the municipal properties into, a small community, tiny home community, or any of those things. How does that work with, in the rural setting where it's not on municipal services, and you're talking community septic, community wells, from a planning perspective, yeah, pretty much that's it.
That's all.
So, well, there's a couple things. If you have a community well, if you get more than 5 people on that well, you have to enter into a responsibility agreement with the municipality. And I haven't met too many municipalities that want to enter in that, because it puts all the liability back on them. And so most of them say, keep it under that and do your own well, is what most of them say. So you can limit it into pockets of 4 or 5 if you really want. Certainly, if the municipality was trying to foster something like that, you would look at doing your own studies first for, like, say you had a pocket of land in Spring Park that was vacant, and you wanted to repurpose that land. You might do a capacity study and say, okay, that 10 acres that we have can house X amount of units of capacity for 2, whatever the case may be. But you get a capacity for that land for a particular kind of septic system. And then you do the same for the water, and then you would divvy it up accordingly. So it's possible.
Not impossible.
There'd just be some dollars required for investment of that sort of thing.
Brian?
Looking down the road further, any merit in your mind to turning the planning back to Craig County? Period?
Well, there's certainly pros and cons with that. Having been in both situations, because in Bruce County they have the planning at the county, and a lot of the municipalities actually don't like that because they don't get to have their say as much right? Because when you have your own local staff, you get to provide your own opinion on things. And it keeps the decision local, and you're planning local, as opposed to a top-down county approach. What's good for Southgate may not be the same for Owen Sound.
Okay,
In your report there, Clay, if you said, like, is there a limit to our growth, you think? Like, are we, seen the one part there, where is our limit? Do we have a limit?
I hope there's always room for growth. I think you'll see it changing over time, where as we get bigger, we'll start going out less and start going up more. One of the best ways to improve your downtowns is to promote higher density residential in your downtowns to provide more people for the shops, to more patrons. That's the best way. Obviously, with the way things are in Southgate right now, that's not happening, but I foresee that coming where we would promote that more and more. Instead of just 1 or 2 apartments above a shop, I want to see 3 stories, sort of thing.
I'm just gonna add to that. I think the interesting thing, I mean, we're seeing that upwards already with the seniors apartments, because it's gonna be 4 stories, I think. And, I think the interesting thing will be is, and maybe we won't see it, but when does it jump across Highway 10 to the other side? It's almost like that's the area where you can't jump it. And that's more because MTO are such a pain. But as soon as you put the first pipe across the road, with water and sewers, then away we go. We're off to the races. But the one thing that I really would recommend the council not to allow is what happened in Mount Forest, in that West Gray owns part of the property. And to me, if you're providing those services, you need to amalgamate that land to be in control of water system and everything else, and reap the rewards of that, those services. But that's a big question. And then the other thing was mentioned was planning up in Owen Sound. I think they're getting more, closer to, from a planning perspective, I think they're getting closer to the province than they are to the real life down here on the street. That's my opinion.
go ahead, Frank.
Fair enough. But I wanted to go back to the idea of, and I think what you're talking about is annexing a piece of property on the other side of Highway 10.
Yes.
So how big a chunk could you foresee us annexing to, you know,
Well, I'll
make it realistic, but there again,
I'm interested what he says, but I'm gonna say first that near whatever we're doing on our side, they do on their side, because what you're gonna see on the farm that we own down south, it's gonna start there, or maybe it'll kind of meet in the middle, but you're gonna get highway commercial, so you're gonna have a collector road behind Highway 10, and you're gonna have those box stores. And eventually, when we run out of that space, it's gonna jump across the highway, because they're gonna want that same thing. And are we gonna be 8,000 people in 20 years? I don't know, but maybe, like just in Dundalk alone, I'm talking. It's gonna grow. Well, look at Shelburne, it's gone crazy, and they don't have, we have a developer in town that has land down there, and he can't even get a door open to get to his property, because they don't have capacity to service him.
What I
Go ahead.
foresee is all the land between Highway 10 and the village of Dundalk being fully developed within the next 10 to 15 years, I would say. So right from the southerly portion all the way up towards Main Street and the Flato development. So all of that would be developed. And then once that happens, I see it actually starting to go a little bit on the north side and the west side. What I think is if you're gonna look at doing development on the east side of the highway, you're gonna look at a cost analysis of your servicing first, and whether it's cheaper to get and continually service stuff on the east side of the highway than to bring services up either street. If you bring services up Ida Street, then all of a sudden, both sides of Ida Street are now fully developable. And there's several hundred units and smaller farms in and around the area, just on the other side of the eco park, that are potential for further development if, and this is 20 years down the road, I would say, for something like that. But you have to look at the cost of that servicing Ida Street. Is it cheaper to do that than it is go under the road and then put up new signals, new turn lanes, and redo all that intersection for new development? If you got commercial, big box stuff, absolutely, because they're gonna pay for all that. But it depends, you gotta get one or two of them in first to get that match.
Well, quite frankly, I don't think it matters what it costs. If people wanted to be on Ida Street, they'd be there now. Because your retailers don't wanna be on Ida Street because there's no traffic on it. They wanna be on Highway 10.
It'll be the commercial that drives it first.
Yeah.
And as
So-
soon as they jump over Highway 10, it's gonna be somebody that's gonna grab 200 acres of land, and they're gonna flop the front of commercial, and they're gonna just go crazy building houses.
But you're talking that the developer is gonna take the first step, or do we take the first step and annex a piece of ground and provide it to the developer?
Too expensive a business for us to get into,
Well, we're in it now.
not to the scope you're talking there. To
Well-
jump Highway 10, that's a big deal.
I would
Yeah, but we're in the
say,
business.
what I say is, if,
No, we are,
what
but
I would say is if you have an interested party willing, like, if you've already started that, down that road, down in the 150 acres,
Yeah.
if you have an interested party come to you and say, well, we're looking at this across the road, will you help us out with that? Then you explore annexing that, because you already have someone who's committed to developing that at that time. If they're like, I've got options on this, and then you look at that. I don't know if you would get into that right away, because we all came back down to servicing and providing servicing for you. The cost of the servicing has to be manageable by the municipality, right? You can't plan 50 years ahead and go keep on building your servicing, because your existing population will never be able to support that. So you build it in smaller chunks.
and you'd need $1 million just to jump Highway 10, just to get everything over the other side.
But I think to Brian's point, maybe the takeaway from us, for us from here, is let council be educated on what the process is and
Yeah.
what the, because that's the type of thing, like applying for a lot of grants. If we have a lot of the idea in place, if we have ideas of how it goes, then we'll be able to jump on a plan if something comes up. But if somebody approaches us right this minute, we're, at least on this side, I'm clueless about the process and the whole bit.
Well, in an earlier presentation, we heard that we needed to strap on a set and get at it, but
That's-
now
yeah.
we're saying, no, sit back. I mean, come on, you can't suck and blow at the same time.
This is visioning.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
that's
doing.
right.
This.
That's right. Okay, next vision,
So.
economic
We're
development.
almost halfway through the economic development
Yeah.
presentation already. So I'm gonna be quick here. The economic development, I heard that up there. Economic development industrial park, we don't collect anything for development charges. We have some DCs that we collect, downtown facades, it's broke out there. Industrial park, that's just basically a reserve that we have, that we plunk in revenues from eco park sales. So obviously that, we would jump in there and use to build the road. Horse buggy trail, there's 4,500 there. That's kind of a program that's in kind of, well, flux, I would say. It's being shut down in other municipalities. It just doesn't seem to be getting traction. One of the main reasons is Misty Meadows is so busy with his own business. He was one of the main cogs in that thing. Signage, we have 24,500 to support basically Highway 10 and that type of signage. And just general signage around the community. 10,000 for downtown parking. We depleted the reserve for downtown improvements. So The goal number 1 is attracting new and supporting existing businesses and farms. And the first initiative is basically looking at when their population in Dundalk approaches 4,500, that we, get some focus on the types of businesses and the types of things that people are going to be looking for in our community, and incent those as emerging businesses. And so what we have is basically, economic development will need to work with the planner to develop official plan reviews, official plan that supports those kind of things, and policies in our CIP will support those local business opportunities in Southgate to support employment and commerce. Attracting new business and farms, again, in Initiative 1C, it talks about Highway 10 frontage of commercial development, and we're working on the bypass road and servicing design. Construction will likely happen next year, but selling that property to a developer or marketing the lands within our control, with staff doing that, or do we look at a real estate agent to represent us on a commission basis to do a better job or a quicker job? Depends how fast you want it done. We can sit here and kind of wait for those approaches to come at us. I think we've had a lot of activity without a lot of marketing other than signs, and it's been relatively successful. When we get out on that Highway 10, will it be more marketable? I think it will be. There'll be more activity. We're already getting interest. But again, we'll have to wait and see and determine how fast we want that to turn over and really get developed. The other 1D is encourage and facilitate business skills training and programs in Southgate. We're working with the County Economic Development and Business Enterprise Center to support local businesses, and we're going to go in for a RED funding application to help develop an economic development strategic plan to see where we need to be focusing on. The goal for revitalizing downtown, 2F, is talk about revitalizing through an advisory committee, and that comes along with the CIP. That once we get through this process, we'll be setting up a CIP committee to support the downtown revitalization and get some opinions on that. 2G is about install prominent signage to promote downtown, so we'll continue to work with MTO to provide that funding for support the signage out there and the landowners that we rent the land from for that purpose. And here's one that kind of was surprising that to me when we got it back in the CIP or the CAP, is that there is interest generally in the community from renewal of those downtown murals. So we'll need to partner with business owners to donate space, and community groups and or Southgate's Community Enhancement Fund to actually look at putting money towards that type of initiative. The one thing that's a bit challenging for the both buildings actually are kind of, it's unknown at this time where they'll be as far as ownership in the coming year or two because of the drugstore possibly moving, and whether its ownership remains within the individual that has it now or it changes. The present owner of Proton Street has little interest in the mural that's on that building, and it's likely the worst of the two, but there's also some idea that that building may come down and something different be put up, so that's yet to be seen. As far as 2020 capital projects and operations plan, downtown improvement, there's a $20,000 downtown improvement capital project. There's 2,000 donations in budget, and a sale proposed for $1 million up to Flato for that land they have once we get the urban justification report and the industrial review done. And then the Highway 10 bypass and design, construction, servicing, that's being managed by the Roads Department. Economic Development Planning 2020, we're going to apply for that RED funding, and if there's money available when we get through that process, we're going to look at student to inventory business and heritage assets as a summer job. And funded, how that would be funded would be, there's $50,000 in savings from the vacant EDO position in our 2020 budget. In 2021 and 2022, again, $20,000 in each year for general downtown improvements and $2,000 each year for facade improvements. And the idea of those, to collect these downtown improvements is, you know, eventually do we look at being able to support funding CIP, or do we look at supporting an actual Croton Street redevelopment? Considerations for the Highway 10 property in 2021 or 2022, complete a land appraisal of the property, listing the sale price per acre for the highway furnished commercial properties, and the Eco Park roadway, I'm gonna call it phase 2, and highway collector road land frontages. So kind of get a, I think there's 3 pieces of property of different values that we could take a look at. And then we could look at a business plan as to, you know, what we could generate versus maybe if we want the money faster, to take less, we market it to someone or sell it to someone for them to market. Again, continue on with that general and facade downtown from 2023 to 2029, just based on present assessment. For, you know, based on development growth, we look at that 140-acre land sale as something to focus on getting done. And then when it comes to demographics, inclusionary research programs and training to welcome new people or new property owners to the community, get community groups involved in having volunteer recruitment fair, because I think one of the things we're not good at small rural Ontario community anyway is allowing people to come in from outside to join community groups and really allow them to engage and feel part of the community really quickly. Work with local business to develop incentive programs to promote and support local businesses. And that's it, question and answers. Based on the best presentation of the day, what do you think, Clint?
Well, it was definitely the last one.
Yeah, definitely. So those are some thoughts, and I think everybody has present thoughts today that just provoke some ideas, some discussion. Some more provoking than others, but I think all good stuff that needs to get out on the table. Otherwise, we're not doing none of us are doing our job.
Absolutely. Barb?
A couple of things, just to your last slide there, Dave, the community group volunteer. Ethan was approached by a resident to help, and he kind of put it off until the Southgate Community Farmers Market gets back into their normal summer routine, but looking at bringing the community groups together for a community group social or an opportunity to have a table, introduce their group, have the newcomers and residents reconnect with those groups and find out how they can get involved and how they can support those groups. So I think in line with that, Ethan's got that on his radar. I did have a question about the community improvement plan, $20,000 from the county. That's a one-time $20,000. It doesn't seem like it would go very far.
I'm not sure it's meant to go far. I think it's just the kind of seed money to stimulate initial start and get going.
Do we see, or do you have in the back of your mind that we would enhance that somehow?
Well, I think that's the $20,000 that we're putting in there per year, starting back here in this year, we're putting $20,000 in downtown improvements. And to me, that's part of CIP.
Okay, thank you.
And we're doing that 2021, 2022, and it's projected to go on through to 2029. So
it's just we're calling it two different things.
Well,
I just wanted to know where it was coming from. That's great.
We're trying to create these. Liam's done a pretty good job of not putting it to a plow truck, putting it to a roads reserve. So this is the same thing. When we say general, it gives us more opportunity for creativity.
Thanks.
Maybe garbage buckets, reserve for garbage buckets down there.
Maybe we'll have a sale on blue bin carts or something down there.
Yes, that could be very possible.
Any other?
Get 3 free.
That's right. Any other questions or comments? Brian?
Alicia, could you scroll that back to Dave's first screen, please?
No,
This is the
back,
first one.
go back a couple more. Well, no, go to the next one.
Second.
Okay, go to the next one. All right, there.
Now, which one are
Well,
you on?
just
Are
go
you on
down
this
a
one?
little, just to get the first line of the neck there. So goal number 1 is attracting new and supporting existing businesses and farms. Now look at the reserve funds and what they're for. Can you square that circle for me, please?
Square that circle, that's not.
I don't see anything in those reserves remotely related to farming.
So,
Oh, let the planner go, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
and you know what?
When
Maybe,
Mike said,
Mike's dead. Yeah.
so maybe we'll blame this on the treasurer. He leaves, no. Maybe we're not, putting the right name on that. Just business improvements, general.
Well, and maybe it's a better job of
But-
indicating that this is inclusive of the whole community, because as you've
Okay.
heard me say this before, this whole economic development thing, if you didn't know there was anything outside of Dundalk, you'd think, this is great.
Sure, I understand what
This
you're
is
saying,
good.
but for the average farmer that's putting seeds in the ground or trying to raise animals, that's not what we're trying to support here. What the county's trying to support, we're trying to support. Remember that little sign that said, "Seen grown in gray," or? So those are the kind of things that I think you make an excellent point, that maybe we need to rename this, but for somebody that wants to put a business plan together to do farm sales, to attract people to come to our community, buy gas as it comes through town at the Shell station, you know, whatever, get a slice of pizza as they go through town for lunch, and then come out and do farm gate business sale, for maple syrup, or whatever. That's the kind of thing that economic development would help support, because the county's doing it, and we likely need to do more of it. And that's why I'm saying,
I got a new battery
well,
now.
He's just jumping.
so something I said made you excited and planning? Okay.
Yeah.
No, so I guess we're on, let me go back to, it was, to this summer student position. That summer student position is not gonna just run around town and run around the whole speed. To me, this is going up and down the side roads and downtown to inventory the businesses and the cultural attraction that we have in town and in the rural area, as well as the farm gate sales. To know, so that we can put up, and the county has this going on right now, where you can look at a community and find out what those assets are. And we need to do the same for our community, because we've lost that. Everybody seemed to value that magazine we put out once a year as a business directory, and it was helpful. But now we don't have it because everybody wants to go online. So maybe we need to identify those assets in our community, such as somebody that produces something, the buggy rides, Misty Meadows, whatever.
Clint, did you have a bit of an idea on that? Do you want to say
I
something?
did a couple things. So whether it's economic development money specifically in that general bucket there that you have, or whether it's a community improvement plan where it's for the whole township. That money is for projects and or businesses within the whole township. So everyone likes to drink wine usually, so the winery idea where you have like the Coffin Ridge where you're producing wine, but then you have a little restaurant on your place where with a nice view of the grapeyard, and you're bringing in people to that area to sample your wares and sell it, but it's one stop of many. So you may contribute some money to that business to help out, to start it out. And then it could be something else with processing of, I don't know, some sort of farm market, I guess, where you have a variety of crops grown that you're trying to market. Maybe you have a homegrown restaurant where everything there is right from that farm. This is
Thank you. I think, to your point though, Brian, maybe we should be looking at putting some money away on, to do things like to tie that together so that, there's more support for the farm and farm businesses, whether it's more links to the Ag Society or to the business enterprise to help, newer, younger person, get their books together and do all their stuff or whatever, but, yeah, if we're economic development for existing businesses and farms and things, I think maybe we should, to what extent they need, help out.
Yeah.
So I agree. Anyone else, any general comments, questions? We can move on from just economic development, we might as well.
The one thing I'll maybe add to that discussion is that community, the farming community, and I can speak to it because I think I'm part of it, as well, in my hobby time. But they're not very good at reaching out to, and looking outside the box, where the younger generation coming up, they're gonna be forced to, because you can't survive on the farm. You've gotta do this extra stuff, the farm gate sales, or work off the farm. That we know that. But I think we need to, as a municipality, the county has done a good job in developing it. I'm not sure they have, they're looking after 8,000 people, where maybe at our level, we can reach out to 8,000 people or smaller constituency and help promote that farm gate issue and inventory what we have, and then start communicating what they can do and help training them.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel, maybe it's just a matter of working more with the county.
Facilitate and introduce.
Absolutely.
And show a pathway, because, the pathway right now is getting the tractor to do the work, put crop in the ground, and that value-added market to their product, they're not always aware of.
Thank you.
Good. Anyone have any other comments or questions about today? Lots to think about, lots to look at. I think what this leads me to is the thought that we've got a few topics that we definitely need to spend more time on, the council. I think more long-term plans and beat some things out so that staff has clear direction for moving forward. The thing that gets me when we go through all this stuff is the good job that's being done now, and I think we can kind of help that out and make it easier by having that direction. So, like I say, whether it's the recycling or some of this economic development or the recreation, whatever, it's clear direction down the road is going to help a lot. That was my word of wisdom. That's all I have. Okay, good. Michael has something.
All I gotta say is that, we're all changing, everything changes. We always have to look outside the box. Just because we did that way, doesn't mean that's the way we gotta keep doing it. We gotta keep changing and changing and changing. Just, there's always more than one way of doing something. I see something one way, Jim can see it another way, Liam sees the dollars at the other end, but at the end of the day, if we don't keep changing, we're gonna fall behind. So we need to look at different ways to be innovative here in Southgate, that we can create where people want to come and live and, spend retirement here. We don't want people just to come here for 3 or 4 months or a year after one winter and then leave, go back to the city, whatever. We need the people to stay here and utilize everything that we have here to offer them. That's my 2 words.
Yeah. And we want them to skate here. Anyone else that have anything to say? Bert, I thought you were just holding your hand up.
So what are the next steps? Are we gonna have another one of these sessions where we can have more dialogue? Is staff coming back with, a little bit more of a drill down on certain aspects, given some of the conversation we've had? What's your thoughts on, this has been a really great day and, a lot of good conversation, but what next?
Well, I thought we'd just forget about it and move on
That's
from
what I'm
there.
afraid of.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're right. I think there's a few things on this. I think between us collectively, council and staff, we have to identify some of the bigger issues that we wanna tackle, and to start making long-term plans together. So whether it's another meeting, or whether we do this, by sending, some information through to Dave, and then we'll sit down and either have part of a council meeting or a separate morning or something to do this. That's the way I'm thinking of it. Dave, did you have?
Well, I guess, I mean, there's some of these issues that there's not much sense in having another discussion on that whole waste piece, because it's a moving target. What's that?
Hurt my feelings, go ahead.
Well, no,
Okay.
but I'm thinking, if you drill down to specific topics we talked about today, kinda stay tuned, we're all gonna get dragged through this quagmire called recycling and blue box, but also the tire thing and the hazardous waste. So I think we're gonna have to, there'll be a lot of staff reports coming from Jim. Like between now and June, we gotta make a decision, but I think Mike's kinda direction, or what I heard from Mike was, the best decision we could make is not make a decision between now and June, but say, hey, these are our concerns, and we don't have enough information yet, and make sure that gets out there. And make sure we engage when there's consultation, because, I'm going to, one on Friday with, the Ministry of Environment. So, but anyway, I think that's one issue. I think there's some discussion for sure about recreation that we need to have. I think at the rec committee level, we can have that conversation. But I think council needs to, the first thing we gotta do in recreation is decide on the old town hall. That was pretty evident today. And I think, nature's gonna take its course depending on how that infrastructure funding comes out with the ICIP grant, because that's gonna be pivotal. And, I think, if the business plan that they're proposing, I would to say that it's not really a public document. I think that needs to get out there if we do get the funding. And then, so there's a lot of decisions around there. But we can't make this Old Town Hall thing drag on for another year. At the end of this year, something has to happen, and, purpose it or repurpose it or whatever we're gonna do. There was a lot of discussions, with the planning stuff. There's a lot of stuff there. I think that was more information. We're gonna see that stuff come along. I guess I'd throw it back to council that maybe, if there's some issues, make the mayor aware of it, and we'll have a discussion, and if we need to have another session specifically on 2 or 3 or 4 items, then I think that we should do that. But, coming out of this right now, I think those are the two main areas, is basically, the recreation piece and the waste piece. And I think we got some due diligence to do. I'm looking forward to seeing what they think the landfill's worth. They may blow our socks off, or we may tell them to get the heck out of Dodge. We don't need you here, pretty quickly. But let's find out. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And use their engagement tools to find out more about, what people think of Proton Station Park and Holstein Park and those kind of things. And we scale back, still deliver the same service, repurpose some land, cut less grass, save money, so that we can put it in a better place, in potholes.
With the heavy buckets.
With the bigger bucket.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's where we would leave it. I didn't see anything else that jumped out, other than we may, take Brian's advice and rename downtown improvement, economic improvement fund or something, in general.
So I think that's a good idea. If anybody has any input, channel it through me, and then we'll either get it back on an agenda, or we'll do whatever, we'll sit down and look at it.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think every department got something to take away, and the one that kinda hit home to me is, Derek better go back and take a hard look, and let's get those darn bottles, if we need those for the guys, to make them safe. Because we can grab money from another bucket. There's 58,000 in Melanchthon's, did you turn the recorder off?
Yeah.
In Melanchthon's reserve, let's spend it on air bottles, if it's
Dave
gonna make
said
our lives
bottles,
safe.
not trucks, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then he clarified and said air bottles.
Yeah, air ball.
Yeah.
I don't wanna talk about bottles anymore.
Brian said trimmer, chipper, too.
Chipper.
Well,
Well,
we had so much work done from the time, went and got the chipper till we had the operation, but anyway.
I would entertain a motion that we resolve, back to the special council meeting. Barb?
Yep.
And Brian, at now, whatever year now is, all in favor? That motion's carried. We have, motion, council receives the visioning session presentations as information. Jim and Jason? And, any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw. Brian and Michael? All in favor? That is carried. Adjournment. Brian moves that we adjourn at 3:37.
So, it doesn't have to be on the record, but I wanna thank everybody from one end of the table to the other for a lot, and there's a lot of our